A world filled with superheroes and S-rank monsters, but the protagonist? He's just a powerless nobody. While everyone admires heroes with insane abilities, Zhou Xuantian accidentally gets caught in a disaster involving a terrifying S-rank monster called the Forest King. Right when he's about to die, a mysterious goddess appears in his mind and offers him something far more dangerous than superpowers: immortal cultivation. While the entire world relies on abilities, he becomes the only person using ancient cultivation techniques capable of crushing monsters that even top heroes fear. And without further ado, let's get into the video because this one is insane. Recently, some criminals dumped nuclear material into the sea, resulting in mutations in several marine species. To deal with this situation, the Hero Association sent 2 S-rank heroes, and now this is being broadcast live on the radio. The monsters try to attack the hero, but Neon Dongxia gets irritated, thinking those guys are shameless, wondering how much nuclear material they had to release to create so many mutations. The hero easily manages to defeat the first 2 monsters, however, several more appear and he gets annoyed, saying that this fight never ends. However, he does not panic, since he has a plan to finish all of them at once. He uses his ability, Sea Telekinesis Tornado, creating a whirlpool of water and hitting all the monsters at the same time. Meanwhile, inside a classroom, Zhou Xuantian, an ordinary, non-awakened person, watches the live stream saying that Neon Dongxia truly deserves to be an S-rank hero because he is incredible. Suddenly, he remembers that his school is near the sea, so maybe he can go take a look. This is a world of superpowers, and those capable of using them are called heroes. They are admired by thousands of people all over the world, and people without superpowers like Xuantian have no choice but to remain only within the urban area under the jurisdiction of the world government. But Xuantian had a different view of all of this. He looks toward the hallway and realizes that the guard had gone toward the cafeteria and this is his chance to escape. He runs out, saying that he needs to get there quickly because he needs to get Dongxia's autograph. At the bottom of the sea, at the base of the nuclear power plant, the Water Witch receives a notification saying that they have already finished there and asking whether she managed to find the source of the mutation. She explains that she is almost finished there too and asks for 2 more minutes. She is also an S-rank hero, as well as the president of the Hero Association. Meanwhile, inside the base, one of the employees warns his boss that from the monitor they can see someone approaching at high speed. The boss gets irritated, asking if this is some kind of joke because how could anyone reach that place since that nuclear power plant was built at a depth of 5,000 meters? Suddenly, the Water Witch manages to break through the wall and says that she has finally found the source of the whole problem. As soon as she enters, the people are surprised, and one of the employees says that he knows those silver hairs and that outfit very well. So she is probably the Water Witch. The Water Witch asks how they dare bring trouble to the place under her jurisdiction. She begins attacking everyone, saying that they need to pay a very heavy price for everything they have done. She receives another call on the radio and someone introduces himself, saying that he is the new anchor of the radio station called Superpower because he had heard that she was searching for the origin of the mutation and asks what the situation is now. She says that he called at the right time because she has just dealt with the people responsible. In addition, she also found the factory and will separate the nuclear contaminated water later. She looks at everyone, including the live stream, and curses at them all, saying they had better not get in her way again. Because if they think nuclear material is offensive, they just need to call her since she will personally dump it into the body of the person responsible. Xuantian was still watching the live stream and was fascinated by all of it, saying that it is so cool and that apparently having superpowers is amazing. Suddenly, 2 people behind him notice the protagonist, and the young man asks the girl beside him if the clothes he is wearing are not from that school for losers. The girl gets a little confused and asks how he can walk through the streets, because apparently he needs to learn a good lesson. Suddenly, a deity appears and asks what is happening in that world. She is the Lady of Heaven, Queen Mother of the West, known as Alma. She complains, saying that this is filthy and that all those people are filthy. They do not deserve the soul of the Queen Mother, so how will she be able to recover? But among all those corrupted people, she finally finds the protagonist and realizes that she has found someone who is not yet filthy. The man from before looks at the protagonist and starts provoking him, saying that he is nothing but trash and that this is not a place where he can stay, so he needs to leave quickly and go back to his shitty school. The protagonist looks at the young man and asks if he was really just called trash and points out that discrimination against non-awakened people is a violation of the world government's laws, and there is no rule in the world that forbids them from walking through the streets. Xuantian thinks that maybe it would have been better if he had gone out without his uniform because those 2 in front of him look like gangsters. Alma continues observing the situation and is impressed, saying that apparently the protagonist is not bad and has a very good temperament. Besides, the most important thing about him is that Xuantian was born with a strong affinity for the chi of heaven and earth. That talent can be described as innate. Because of that, she needs to check whether he is worthy of becoming the vessel of the Queen Mother. The 2 who are belittling the protagonist ask what law he's talking about, because the only purpose of the non-awakened is to entertain the awakened. The two take him into the middle of a forest and tie him to a tree. The protagonist starts shouting, saying that the two of them are going crazy and asked to be released because they kidnapped a non-awakened person for no reason. And, apparently, they are not afraid of the police catching them. The woman starts laughing and tells him to be quiet because now they are going to play a little and will think about letting him go once they are satisfied. The man approaches, saying that he recently acquired a new ability and needs to use him as a test subject. The protagonist gets scared, wondering what that guy is trying to do to him. The young man punches the tree, shouting for it to obey. That punch made the tree's roots enter the underworld, and suddenly, a monster appears. The monster asks the humans what they want and how they dared interrupt that king's rest. The protagonist gets scared, asking what the young man did, but the young man only laughs, saying that it worked. He keeps laughing, saying that he will make that entire forest obey his commands. But the monster grabs the two of them with its own hands, and the girl is terrified, asking the boy what he brought to life. That is an S-rank monster known as the Forest King. The Forest King starts shouting, saying that he needs more power. The girl, still unable to move a single muscle, shouts for her companion to hurry up and do something. But the boy starts being squeezed and cries out for help. Suddenly, all his life, energy, and power are sucked away. The Forest King says that this is still far too little and that this power is not enough, so he needs more. He throws the girl upward so he can eat her, and the protagonist watches all of it and thinks that, in that situation, he needs to stay calm because it will not be long before a hero appears. The Forest King looks at the protagonist and says that he has terrible luck because how could there be a non-awakened person there? Schwantian says that is exactly right and points out that his flesh tastes very bad, so there is no need for him to eat something that awful. The Forest King grabs the protagonist and starts laughing, saying that the taste of the meat does not matter because food is still food, so he needs to die. Suddenly, a paper with the law of Manhwa appears and causes an explosion in the middle of the forest. The protagonist falls to the ground and Dongfeng Qingmeng, the Taoist successor of the 66th generation, appears, asking if he is alright or if he was badly hurt. Meanwhile, in Mirage City at the Hero Association headquarters, an alert is issued because there has been a violent energy wave near the Wudong mountain area. Presumably, it is the S-rank monster known as the Forest King. A red-haired woman gets startled, asking what the rankings of the available heroes are. Her secretary explains that most of the S ranks are on missions, but Shining Star should already be on her way back. The redhead asks if that means they only have A-rank heroes in the city. She asks where the president and Dongxia are since they are on a mission in the nearby sea. The secretary explains that Dongxia left for Fenglai City to deal with a hurricane disaster after exterminating the mutant species, and the president is finishing up the incident with the nuclear material and should return in 3 days. The redhead becomes worried upon hearing this news because if that takes 3 days, then the entire headquarters will be destroyed. She shouts to summon all the A-rank heroes in the city immediately, set up a police barrier, and prioritize the citizens' safety. Meanwhile, at the site of the incident, Qingmeng was still trying to talk to the protagonist, asking if he was all right, but he was still a little dazed, wondering if he had been saved, until he realized there was a white silk right in front of him. He turns around and looks at her in awe, saying that her power is incredible, since she managed to use a super powerful flame. Qingmeng wonders why she's being so nosy again, and apparently she is going to get scolded once more. Qingmeng smiles and says that the protagonist is a little wrong in his deduction, because the truth is that she only used an enchantment. Schwantian holds the paper in his hand and asks what an enchantment is, since he has never seen anything like it before. Suddenly, the Forest King appears again, shouting furiously. He prepares to attack, saying that they will pay the price for what they have done. Qingmeng steps in front of the protagonist and tells him to stay behind her, using another explosion. The Forest King keeps attacking, saying that his vines will keep growing no matter how many times she destroys them. Qingmeng focuses and starts chanting, saying, "O great Emperor, the Protector, the unbreakable shield." She creates a magical barrier to protect the two of them and tells the protagonist to stay close and not move. The Forest King tries to attack, but it is useless. He gets confused, asking what is happening and how that woman managed to block his attacks. Schwantian continues becoming more and more surprised, saying that Taoist spell is truly incredible. He feels protected and calls out to the Forest King, asking if he really is an S-rank monster, questioning if that is all he has because he is far inferior to an S-rank hero. The Forest King tells the protagonist not to be so reckless because he is the king of the entire forest and everything there will surrender to him. Suddenly, the monster starts growing several times larger and the protagonist gets scared, questioning if that is truly the strength of an S-rank monster. Qingmeng shouts, saying that things are not looking so good now, because that was a spell that could withstand ordinary attacks, not that kind of powerful attack. The protagonist realizes that an attack is coming toward them, grabs her and pulls her back, telling her to be careful. The goddess continues watching and realizes that the protagonist is so weak that a simple attack would completely tear him apart. The Forest King says that he has finally caught the two of them and that now he will absorb both of their life energy. Meng starts having her life energy drained and feels an uncomfortable pain because it seems like all the energy inside her body is being pulled out. The protagonist also starts feeling the same thing and suddenly begins to lose consciousness. He tries to resist, but wonders if this really is his end and if he will die in a place like that. But suddenly, inside his consciousness, he hears a voice calling him a brat, asking if it is not too early to give up like this. The protagonist, still lost in his thoughts, asks who is talking to him and where that place is. Alma appears, saying that she thinks he has good talent, and asks why he does not try to learn cultivation and become an immortal with her. Xuantian asks who she is, and the goddess says that she is the person who will help him get out of his current problem. However, he needs to think a little more about what she just said. The protagonist asks if she is sure she can defeat that monster. She says that this is very easy for her, but she will do it as long as he allows her to enter his body to guide him in cultivation and help him become an immortal. Xuantian is surprised by this request and thinks that maybe she is an evil existence that wants to control him. He ends up saying that the idea is not bad, but he wants her to prove that by cultivating and becoming an immortal, he will become superpowered. Deep inside, she becomes furious, questioning how that brat dares to offend her, the Queen Mother herself, because she would have skinned him alive if she were not trying to restore her physical body by using him. She emphasizes that she is not lying to him because there are many great benefits to cultivating and becoming an immortal. The protagonist sits on the ground and asks if she is serious, because if that is true, then she could tell him a little more about it. The goddess approaches and emphasizes that cultivating to become an immortal will calm his mind and help him live for 1,000 or even tens of thousands of years. Then he will have plenty of time to learn the ways of the world and understand the true meaning of everything. The protagonist is surprised, saying that 1,000 years is ridiculous, and that even if it is true, he is not interested in living that long. Alma emphasizes that she has not finished speaking yet because she is sure he will like these other benefits, especially once he learns to cultivate and become an immortal. He will be able to manipulate the elements. So, needless to say, if he can move mountains, turn the world upside down, and possess the ability to create or destroy worlds, everything will be in the palm of his hands. Xuantian keeps questioning whether she is serious and says that he still does not believe her. While they are there talking about how he is going to become an immortal, he is dying outside on Earth. The goddess says that he is a very ill-mannered brat and asks how her soul will enter his body and support him with her power if he does not open his mind. The protagonist, after receiving a light pat on the head, starts wondering what he should do because that girl's life is being drained because she tried to save him. So he needs to at least try to do what that crazy woman is saying because it is the only way. He agrees, saying that he will become an immortal and do anything as long as she can get him out of that problem. Back in the mountain area, Meng was already unconscious on the ground. The Forest King holds the protagonist, laughing and asking how that little man still dared to speak so boldly to him. Because if he really believes he can stop the next attack, he can wait for that in his next life. But suddenly, Xuantian opens his eyes, and an extremely powerful force begins to surge from inside his body. His hair grows, his eyes change, and he asks who will need to wait for the next life, because he will end this fight immediately. The Forest King is shocked, saying that this is impossible, and asks how the protagonist managed to recover his energy. The protagonist calls upon the ancient gods and asks them to obey his call, ordering them to devour everything in sight. He creates an absurd amount of energy, and the Forest King starts screaming, asking why he could no longer move his own body. Suddenly, he is simply swallowed by that absolute power. Alma realizes that the protagonist managed to use 10% of her power, and that shows that he really is very good. If she can help him cultivate and become an immortal, her revenge will move forward. She disappears, and the protagonist returns to normal, asking where that monster went. In addition, he also notices that his body has changed. His hair has changed color and grown longer, so he gets scared, asking what is happening there. The goddess explains that the monster was absorbed by the protagonist's body. She emphasizes that everything she said before was not a lie. After learning her cultivation technique, he will be able to use it to control his power. Xuantian finally understands what is in front of him and emphasizes that this cultivation thing is apparently incredible, and he really wants to learn it. Meanwhile, at Shanghai City School for the Non-Awakened, a plane had stopped, and everyone in front of it needed to move as quickly as possible because they could not waste time. If they took any longer, none of them would be able to leave. The woman was trying to restrain the students, saying that there was no reason for them to panic, since the association had already sent 2 A-rank superheroes to protect them, and all of them could evacuate safely. A blonde boy starts looking around and asks Xiaoer if he has seen Xuantian. Xiaoer says that guy probably escaped to watch the A-rank superheroes in battle and that there is no need to worry about him. Meanwhile, near the school, Burning Fiery, the 12th A-rank superhero, was holding back the advance of the monsters. But Quickblade was angry because he was stealing all his prey. He quickly advances with his sword, cutting down all the other monsters around him. Fiery asks what the fun is in fighting those weak monsters because he wanted to fight the Forest King face to face. Quickblade tells him not to be so arrogant because S-rank monsters compared to those little creatures are completely different races. And if he decides to do that alone, he will only be embarking on a suicide mission. Suddenly, the monsters surrounding the two of them notice something and immediately run back. Quickblade asks what that was and why all the monsters are retreating. Fiery wonders if it is possible that the Forest King was defeated. The protagonist, who was approaching, notices the horde of small monsters coming toward him and asks what is wrong with them. He tries to use his powers again but realizes that it is not working. Alma warns him that the mere fact that he managed to execute that power before means that he is indeed very talented, but if he wants to use it again, he will need to cultivate more. Completely terrified, he asks if this is some kind of joke because if that is the case, then his only option is to run. The goddess continues explaining that cultivation requires time and cannot be rushed, so he needs to run as fast as possible. Schwantian says that she made it sound easy and orders her to hurry up and help him think of a solution. Otherwise, he will be torn into pieces. Suddenly, the sky begins to change and powerful lightning takes the place of the clouds. Shining Star, an S-rank hero, was trying to catch up. Chen Xingxuan, the president's daughter, was still in the middle of the forest looking for her bracelet because originally she had gone there to see if her superpowers had returned. She hears a noise, looks back and gets scared, asking where so many monsters came from. She tries to run away and realizes that she's being very unlucky that day, but keeps running, saying that she cannot die no matter what. Suddenly, she runs into the protagonist and shouts for him to get out of the way, but there was no time. She falls on top of him and he starts smiling, asking if he has already reached paradise. Xingxuan gets up and apologizes, saying that she did not see that they were coming. The protagonist says that they had better focus on the current situation because they are surrounded. Besides, if she is in the middle of the forest, then that means she must also be one of those awakened people, and he asks her to use her powers immediately. Xingxuan says that she is indeed awakened, but she is without her bracelet, so she is unable to use her powers. The protagonist gets confused, wondering what kind of power requires the use of external objects to be activated. He asks her if she is not lying and if she can really eliminate those monsters if she has that bracelet. Xingxuan gets angry and shouts that she is not lying because if she really has her bracelet, then she can eliminate all that trash in only 3 seconds. Xuantian places Qingmeng on the ground and says that the forest is enormous, and looking for a tiny bracelet inside it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. He thinks for a moment and asks the Queen Mother if she is going to come out to help him because she cannot disappear at such a critical moment. He tells Xingxuan to forget the bracelet for now because they are already surrounded. He asks her to carry Qingmeng on her back because he will stay behind and distract those beasts. Suddenly, the protagonist notices that there is a bracelet tangled around the horn of one of the monsters and asks her if that is the bracelet she was looking for. Xingxuan says yes and emphasizes that this is why she could not find it. Xuantian says that it is all right and charges forward, saying that he will trust her because he hopes she can indeed eliminate all those monsters in only 3 seconds. He thinks that if this does not work, then against all those monsters, he definitely will not even last 3 seconds. He charges forward with his bare hands to attack one of the monsters, manages to grab the bracelet, and throws it to her at the last second. He shouts that this is the end for him, but she puts on the bracelet and tells him not to worry because he will not die since now she is able to show a bit of her power. She lifts all the monsters and snaps her fingers, making all of them explode simultaneously. Xuantian is impressed, saying that it is incredible because it looks like fireworks. However, his joy does not last long and he complains because new monsters have appeared again. Xingxuan says that there is no problem because now she can turn all of them into dust. New explosions happen and within a few seconds, all the monsters had been completely eliminated. The protagonist praises her again, saying that the firepower is truly incredible. He asks what kind of technology that is and whether he can test it a little too, but Xingxuan says that he cannot even think about it because that bracelet was custom made for her and is not available to the general public. However, she realizes that she is feeling a little strange because maybe she used too much of her power. The ground begins to shake and the protagonist questions what is happening. Suddenly, the two of them start falling. Meanwhile, Dongfeng Zhaoshu, Qingmeng's father, was angrily searching for his daughter since she never listens to him. He goes to the hole and uses his abilities to levitate the protagonist, Xingxuan, and his daughter. He looks at her, thinking that apparently she has already forgotten the family rules. At the Hero Association headquarters, the redhead still could not understand anything, asking if the energy source really disappeared and what was going on, because perhaps some hero had defeated the Forest King. Her secretary says that they have not received any reports so far. This makes the redhead think that maybe the Forest King could be hiding. She asks them to send an investigation team immediately and not rest until they find the Forest King's remains. An investigation team is quickly sent into the forest and they wonder whether a hero really managed to eliminate the Forest King. While searching, they find Xingxuan and Xuantian. They are taken to the hospital and the protagonist's sister runs out, thinking that her brother needs to be more careful because he cannot get hurt and wondering why he was in the middle of the forest. Suddenly, two men stop in front of her, asking if she is there to see her brother. One of them says that he is very lonely there and asks her to stay with them for a while. She thinks that apparently those idiots are looking for death because she is in a great hurry. She tries to solve everything without violence, asking if they are really capable of bullying someone as adorable as her. The man says that the truth is that they are not bullying her, only asking her to spend a little time there with them, and he thinks that she is very beautiful. The protagonist's sister loses her patience and punches the man in the face, saying that this is extremely annoying and tells him to get out of her way already. She keeps running and goes to her brother's room. The doctor asks if she has family and tells her not to worry because he only got hurt a little. But as soon as she looks at her brother, she's surprised, saying that he had short hair and it was a little darker, so how did he become like that? This makes her wonder if he is really okay. The doctor is surprised and says that according to the reports, there is nothing unusual about his health, but now he needs to leave and asks her to stay there and take care of him for a while. While sitting beside her brother, she thinks that this is a little strange and wonders how he could suddenly appear in the forest and come out injured, because if anything happens to him, she will never be able to forgive herself. She cries, thinking that she needs money, but on the outside, she keeps a smile on her face, telling her brother that she needs to go work a part-time job. Otherwise, she will not be able to pay the hospital bills, and that she will come back to see him at night. As soon as the protagonist is alone, the goddess appears, saying that it is time for him to wake up and begin his training. Schwantian slowly opens his eyes and asks where he is and where those two girls are. The goddess says that they are fine and tells him not to worry. He gets up even more frightened and asks why he is inside a hospital and how long he slept. The goddess says that maybe it was about half a day. He thinks that he needs to get out of there immediately in case the doctor tries to keep him there, because that will cost a fortune. Sometime later, back in his room, he thinks that the hospital probably sent the bill to his sister, which makes him wonder what he should say when she comes back that night. In that world, the non-awakened are incapacitated by the government, so the protagonist cannot work and cannot even decide to leave the hospital on his own. He thinks that he does not know exactly how much the medical bills are, but he hopes that his sister will not be too angry with him. Alma asks what is wrong with him because they can take the first step toward immortality. The protagonist gets excited because he had already managed to eliminate an S-rank monster, and after learning to cultivate, he will probably become a superhero too. That way, his sister will no longer need to shoulder all the family expenses alone. Alma touches his forehead and takes him to another place. The protagonist asks where he is. She explains that this is the space she reserved for him. Since he is still a beginner, it is important that he enter the Chi training stage as quickly as possible. Schwantian asks what exactly that means. The goddess says that she will explain from the beginning because there are 6 stages of cultivation, which are Chi training, foundation building, golden core, energy refinement transformation, Mahayana, and ascension. The ascensions require him to go through tribulations. The farther he advances, the more difficult cultivation becomes. And after all of that, lastly, he reaches the final stage, which is being considered an immortal. If he wants to enter the Chi cultivation period, he must try to absorb the essence of heaven and earth to transform his body and fill it with spiritual energy. But with all that explanation, the protagonist was almost going crazy. The goddess notices this and emphasizes that he does not need to understand everything now. First, he needs to enter a meditation posture. He sits down and asks if it is correct. She says yes. Now he needs to close his eyes and feel his surroundings. He will find an energy that is everywhere. It is Chi energy, and he needs to absorb it into his body. The protagonist begins cultivating quickly, and the goddess is impressed to see that he is indeed a genius with a unique affinity for Chi. With immense care, he will become an immortal in less than 100 years and will be a perfect vessel for her to use. Some time ago, the goddess had been ambushed by a man. This was the army. The man was saying that it was time for her to give up her position as Lady of the Gods. All those years, she had oppressed everyone because they were men, so they could not take it anymore. He was the true Lord of the 9 Suns. Alma says that he has no right to say that because many submitted to her voluntarily. But the Lord of the 9 Suns shouts that on that day, she will receive the justice of heaven. The battle between them begins, but she blocks all the attacks, saying that this is ridiculous because she is the Lady of the Heavens, so she is the way of heaven and also the law of heaven. All those who rebelled will die. She counterattacks, demonstrating astonishing and overwhelming power. One of the members becomes desperate, saying that woman has cultivated for 1 million years, so they do not stand the slightest chance. The true Lord says that he already knows that, but they need to continue with the plan. The goddess asks if that really is the level of the celestial realm. Another woman starts laughing and approaches. She is the Orchid Fairy. Hugging the goddess's arm, she smiles and asks her sister to calm down, because those stinking men are very annoying. Because of that, she made a cup of fairy war wine for her. This way, she can increase her battle power and after drinking it, return to the fight. Alma holds the cup and smiles, saying that she is very happy that Orchid is being so kind. because today she will destroy those men and turn the celestial realm into a female world. As soon as she drinks the wine, she realizes that the taste is strange. Suddenly, her spirit begins to separate from her body, and all her energy begins to escape. The Lord of the Nine Suns shouts, saying that now is their only chance. That thing begins absorbing all her energy and spirit. While being absorbed, she wants to know if they really think they can keep her inside with that magic. The true Lord says that this is very obvious. They are not capable of doing that, but they found another way, which is to throw her into the dimensional abyss. Since then, her soul has been wandering through dimensional space. After all the difficulties she went through to reach that dimension, she will not lose the chance to recreate her physical body. Back at the Hero Association headquarters, the redhead still could not understand anything, thinking that all of this was very strange, because the Forest King did not disappear for no reason in the middle of all that chaos. Because of that, it is inevitable that they omitted some information. The secretary, who is carefully observing the details, notices something. She calls Tina and says that maybe she has found the person who defeated the Forest King. Someone took a photo of Shining at the scene and he must have eliminated that monster. Tina is happy, saying that she had already said that guy was really good. The secretary asks if Tina has ever seen Shining's face, because she is curious to see what he really looks like. Tina explains that the personal information of S-rank heroes is top secret, and not even she has access to such things. However, she heard that he is a handsome guy. The prize money he earns is always donated to schools for the non-awakened, so besides being handsome, he is also very kind. Tina tells her secretary that she is sure the two of them would make a very good match, and asks if she would like to be introduced to him. The secretary gets embarrassed and asks Tina not to tease her. Suddenly, she notices that Xingxuan is on the list of victims provided by her rescue team. Tina becomes worried, asking what she was doing there. Her secretary says that the record shows she was discharged from the hospital and went home. Tina is relieved because if this had reached the president's ears, she would be furious to know that this happened. A short time later, the protagonist's sister returns home and asks if he has already left the hospital, but she cannot find him and keeps looking. As soon as she opens the bedroom door, she realizes that he is cultivating. She is surprised and happy, saying that apparently he is managing to awaken his powers. Xuantian smiles and says that it is more or less like that. However, he thinks that telling her the truth about cultivation would be too shocking, so he prefers to leave things as they are. His sister approaches, saying that apparently the reason his hair became like that is because he awakened his powers. Xuantian laughs and agrees, telling her that his hair ended up getting very long, and asks his sister if she would like to cut it. Excited, she says yes and runs off to get the tools. A short time later, while cutting his hair, she emphasizes that now that he also has superpowers, they no longer need to stay in the current school, so he can go to the awakened school tomorrow. He asks his sister to calm down a little because she is rushing too much. With shining eyes, she says that this is very obvious, because the sooner he goes, the better, since the security there is very good and the two of them will be a little closer. That way, she can be there if anything happens to him, since she does not want to go through what she went through today again. The protagonist ends up agreeing, saying that he will listen to her and change schools. Suddenly, someone appears, asking where Sixizi, the famous goddess, is, because that dimension is truly enormous. So how could he find her? He is an immortal celestial named Taibai Xingjun. He remembers everything that happened and thinks that damned traitor deserves to die, because how could someone as beautiful and elegant as Zixizi not be worthy of being the Lady of the Heavens? I will call Alma Yixizi from now on, and when he manages to bring her back, he will do the same to that traitor and send him to the Nile 100,000 times. Suddenly, he looks at the compass and it starts working. He becomes emotional and happy because apparently Zixizi is in that city, since he has been traveling for so many days that he can barely count them. On Wudang Mountain, inside the Taoist temple, Qingmeng starts waking up and, with a weak voice, asks why she's back home. Her father says that she has finally woken up. Worried, Qingmeng asks her father what happened to the boy who was with her. Zhao Shu asks how she still has the audacity to ask that, because they have stayed away from the world for so many years, and because of her, they were almost discovered. Qingmeng apologizes to her father, saying that she was wrong. Her father slams the teacup on the table, saying that it is very good that she has understood her mistake because she must not make contact with strangers in the future. He says that the boy was saved by the rescue team and that she does not need to worry about that. Besides, he has also already retrieved the ancient painting she lent out. This time, she will have to draw 100 talismans in seclusion as punishment. Qingmeng understands the situation and accepts her punishment. The protagonist was brushing his teeth and thinks that the world has never been fair. Some people born into hero families have two abilities, while there are people like him, born without parents and without superpowers. He used to be obsessed with chasing after heroes, while wondering if he could also awaken superpowers and maybe get closer to them. But now, he no longer dreams like that. With the help of the immortal cultivation method, the chance he had longed for has finally come to him. As soon as he arrives at the new school, he is impressed, because everyone there has superpowers. With a smile on his face, he thinks that he needs to say goodbye to his old classmates, but they do not need to worry because he will still visit them sometimes. He walks a little and sees a room in front of him, thinking that maybe this is the place where freshmen take their tests. The protagonist gets in line and the examiner explains that all freshmen need to take the test first to see their superpowers using that equipment. The protagonist becomes worried because if that is equipment for testing powers, then he does not know if it will be able to detect his cultivation. Meanwhile, in a flying car, Xingxuan's mother was telling her daughter that she had trusted Dr. Saimu to study the matter of restoring her powers, so she does not need to cause trouble in the meantime. Xingxuan tells her mother not to worry and says that what happened yesterday was only an accident, that she is almost there and will talk to her later. As soon as she arrives, several people gather beside the car. She steps out and greets everyone, telling them to have a great day. All the men are enchanted by her because, besides being beautiful, her academic performance is incredible, and that is what is expected from an honor student. Wang Zirui, the son of the richest man, tells everyone to get out of his way so they do not block his view. He looks at her, saying that she is indeed the woman he desires, and that when he inherits his father's property, he will definitely add her to his harem. A short time later, the protagonist leaves the testing room, saying that it is finally over, and now he only needs to wait for the results. But he is surprised to see the girl he met in the forest, so he goes over to say hello. Zirui notices this and says that apparently that boy is stalking Xingxuan. He asks one of his henchmen to stop the protagonist immediately. The boy uses a water ability and traps the protagonist inside a bubble. He's surprised, asking what is happening there. He asks Zirui who he is and why he is using his powers. Zirui orders his henchmen to put the protagonist down and emphasizes that the protagonist actually has the guts to go after his future wife. Xuantian gets a little lost and asks who this so-called future wife is supposed to be. The other little lackey shouts at the protagonist, saying that it is the girl he was chasing earlier because everyone in that school knows that their leader likes her. Xuantian asks what that has to do with anything, questioning if they really think he cares about that one-sided love. He thinks that he has finally managed to find out that girl's name. The same boy from before asks the protagonist how he dares talk to the leader like that, because he is the son of the richest person in that place. And Xingxuan is the daughter of the president of the Hero Association. They are basically a perfect match. Zirui starts laughing and says that his follower said something very interesting. Then he gives him some money, making the poor idiot happy. The young man continues acting arrogantly, telling the protagonist to apologize to the leader and promise never to go near her again. But Xuantian asks what will happen if he does not do that. All of them begin releasing their powers, saying that they will make him suffer a lot. The people notice it, saying that there is an idiot challenging the richest boy in that school and that apparently he is a transfer freshman. But no one knows yet what powers he has to be so confident. Zirui tells the three of them to go beat up the protagonist, and whoever manages to defeat him will go with him to his father's mansion. The young men hear this and get excited, because they heard that all the girls there are beautiful. Gigi tries to attack first, but the other boy with wings charges forward, saying that he will be the one to defeat the protagonist. Xuantian realizes that Gigi was the one who trapped him in the water. The three continue attacking, but the protagonist dodges the attacks and thinks that ever since he absorbed a bit of spiritual energy, his body has become much lighter, and his movements have become more agile. So maybe this is the power of cultivation. However, he had been distracted by the attacks, and the flying boy ends up grabbing him and throwing him hard onto the ground. Xuantian gets up, thinking that he did well to protect his body with spiritual energy, because otherwise he would have fractured bones all over his body. The boy who had thrown the protagonist is surprised, asking how he came out unharmed because that should be impossible. Zirui is also surprised, thinking that he has not seen the protagonist use any superpower so far. However, he is extremely agile and has great speed. He is completely fine even after being smashed into the ground. So maybe he has some kind of body-strengthening superpower or something like that. ZXZ praises the protagonist, saying that his use of spiritual energy was not bad and that apparently he can learn things quickly. Xuantian gets excited and tells his master that this is a great opportunity for him to see if his cultivation is much better than those boys' superpowers. The goddess realizes that all this mess is because of superpowers and thinks that she will take this chance to teach him the difference between cultivation and superpowers. She asks if the protagonist can see the things they are releasing from their bodies, because he needs to try to feel them exactly as he felt the spiritual energy and try to control them. Xuantian says that he understands and that he will try to do it. He asks the three fools to hurry up and come at him all at once, because he does not want to waste too much time. They get irritated and charge at him, saying that he will deeply regret saying that. But the protagonist carefully analyzes each movement and tries to control them, creating a huge sphere of water and trapping the three of them inside. Gigi gets confused, saying that those superpowers were his. So how is it possible that the protagonist is using them? Xuantian gets excited but asks his master what just happened. She explains that this is the difference between cultivation and superpowers. Superpowers work by using the energy of the body to affect the environment, just like a magnet attracting metal. On the other hand, cultivation works by using one's consciousness to control the things around them, making them become part of the cultivator. Schwantian is impressed, saying that this is incredible, because if that is true, then it means he can be invincible. Sixizi says that it is not quite like that because materializing his consciousness requires a lot of spiritual energy, and right now, the protagonist's spiritual reserve is not very large, so the things he can control are still very limited. He smiles, saying that he will keep training as much as he can, but at least this is already enough to defeat those 3 idiots. He looks at Zerui and asks if he wants to keep fighting. The students ask who the protagonist is because that was incredible. A newcomer defeating all 3 of them at once is something unheard of. Another boy says that he has heard of something like this before and that the protagonist is probably the secret son of some S-rank superhero. Zerui becomes furious and admits that the protagonist is quite strong, but still advises him to apologize immediately and give up trying to get close to Xingxuan. Otherwise, he will regret going to that school. Zerui thinks that it does not matter what the protagonist's powers are because all of them will be useless before his eyes of the future. But Schwantian prepares to fight and says that there is a time to wake up, a time to eat, and a time to sleep. But when it comes to fighting, any time is the right time for him. Before the 2 can start fighting, Xingxuan shouts for both of them to stop immediately and emphasizes that fights involving superpowers are not allowed on school grounds, and all of them will go with her to the student council. But as soon as she sees the protagonist, she is surprised, thinking that he does not have superpowers, so how did he enter that school and manage to get into a fight? She points at Zerui, saying that according to the school rules, bullying people without superpowers is also not allowed, so he only needs to wait because his parents will be called soon. Zerui gets scared and asks her to wait a moment, saying that it is impossible for that boy not to have superpowers. The protagonist runs over to her and laughs, saying that he is right because he managed to awaken superpowers. Besides, he has just arrived at that school and is still not familiar with the rules, so he would like to politely ask her to ignore this just this once. Xingxuan is surprised, asking if he really just arrived because if that is true, then it is fine for her to let it go for now. But they need to make sure this does not happen again. However, she thinks that the protagonist knows she had lost her superpowers, so she needs to find a way to keep him quiet. She orders Zerui and his group of followers to go to the student council immediately. She smiles and holds the protagonist's hand, saying that he needs to follow her. The 2 begin running through the school, and Schwantian gets a little confused, asking where she is taking him. Xingxuan explains that the protagonist has just arrived, so he is still not familiar with that school, which is why she would like to show him around. They go to the club activity room and she closes the door. Schwantian asks what she is doing because she had said they were going to get to know the place. She moves closer and places her hand on the wall, saying that they can do that later, because right now there is something more important to do. The protagonist looks at her attributes and gets embarrassed, asking what is more important and what she wants to do with him. She realizes that it was also going in a different direction and feels embarrassed, saying that it is nothing obscene. She only wanted the protagonist to keep everything that happened in the forest a secret. Schwantian gets confused, asking why she wants that since she was great there, so it would be better if many people knew what happened. She shouts, saying no. He realizes that apparently she likes to be discreet and says that he understands. Suddenly, a boy bursts through the door, saying that he has arrived. This makes the protagonist lose his balance. He places his hands on something very soft and accidentally kisses her. The green-haired young man asks where his classmates are, but when he looks to the side, he sees that scene, gets embarrassed, and runs away apologizing. He thinks that the most beautiful and coveted girl in that school was making out with a man, that this is huge news, and that he needs to tell everyone. Embarrassed, Xingxuan asks the protagonist to get off her already. He also gets embarrassed and apologizes, saying that he did not do that on purpose. She emphasizes that he cannot tell anyone what just happened there because if he does, then she will beat him up. Besides, she thinks that she cannot let the guy who ran away tell anyone about this. The protagonist remains frozen, not knowing what to do, because what happened was something extremely good. Xingxuan manages to catch up with the green-haired guy and irritated traps him in water, ordering him to come back immediately. She orders him to forget everything he saw. He gets scared and asks her to spare his life, saying that he will forget immediately. Meanwhile, in the student council room, a man apologizes to young master Zerui, saying that they were only following orders and asks him to forgive them. Zerui says that the young man is very sensible, so it is all right. The man says that if young master needs anything in the future, he only needs to say the word. Zerui asks if there is any way for the student council to get the list of those who took the test today. The man says yes, because the student council management system and the teaching system are connected, so they can take a look. But as soon as they look at the protagonist's score, they realize that it is S. Zerui questions how that is possible, because either something is wrong with the machine or the protagonist cheated. Gigi says that if he really is that rank, then the protagonist will be assigned to Xingxuan's class. Zerui becomes furious at this and asks the young man if there is any way to manipulate the numbers. because he does not want to see that annoying boy inside the school. The young man says no, because the student council can only view the data but cannot modify anything. Zerui thinks that this does not matter because there are many ways to get him out of that school. Somewhere else, in the middle of the city, the A-rank superheroine Kanglin confirms the target, an S-rank wanted criminal, Stark. He was standing alone saying that the smell of peace is disgusting, and because of that, he wants to destroy everything all the time. However, he tries to calm himself down, saying that he needs to restrain himself because he has more important things to do at that moment. Suddenly, he senses a presence, which means that he is being followed. A taxi driver stops in front of him and asks if he needs a taxi. Stark touches the taxi and eliminates the driver, saying that he is not worthy of even saying a single word in his presence, so he needs to learn his place. People begin to notice and ask what that guy is doing. Kanglin runs over to them and asks them to make way, but as soon as she arrives, Stark had already disappeared, and only the driver was dead inside the car. She becomes irritated, saying that he disappeared again, but Stark was watching her with fury in his eyes, because a mere A-rank superheroine dared to try to capture him. Meanwhile, inside his room, Schwantian had just received the results of the admission test and was placed in Class A. He says that his sister Yunshu will be happy to see this when she comes back. However, he decides to use that time alone to practice, because he needs to enter the Qi training stage. He concentrates but finds something a little strange and questions why he cannot feel any spiritual energy. Sixizi explains to him that the spiritual energy there is very weak. When he practiced yesterday, he absorbed all the spiritual energy nearby. So, if he wants to practice, he needs to go to a place where the natural environment is well preserved, like a forest. He is surprised, asking if absorbing spiritual energy really is that troublesome. The goddess explains that part of the spiritual energy he absorbed yesterday was collected by her in the forest because she was afraid he would think it was too difficult and give up. This makes the protagonist a little unhappy because he was tricked. Suddenly, someone starts knocking on his door. He finds it strange since his sister is still working, so he does not know who it could be. Xingjun was at the door saying that Sixizi is inside. The protagonist opens the door asking how he can help. Xingjun leaps forward and hugs the protagonist, crying and saying that he finally managed to find her. Schwantian gets confused and tries to push Xingjun away, but he keeps saying that it was very difficult to find her. The protagonist gets irritated and kicks him in the face, saying that he had already asked to be let go. The goddess appears, saying that no wonder the voice sounded so familiar. She says that he is Taibai Xingjun and asks what he is doing there. The protagonist asks his master if he is someone she knows. With a slightly surprised smile, she says yes. Xingjun, still crying, says that he finally managed to find her. Sixizi asks him to stop crying because now that he is there, he can answer whether he knows where her body is and if there is a way for her to return. Xingjun explains that he bribed the deity Beauty and had her secretly help him open the portal. Then he was in such a hurry to go to that planet to help her that he forgot to think about how to go back. Sixizi gets irritated, saying that he is an idiot because there is no point in the two of them meeting if they have no way to return. Xingjun tells her not to worry because her spirit has merged with that boy's, so her body can only be reconstructed through him. Because of that, he will help and provide all the pills he needs to cultivate to immortality. Sixizi becomes a little happier because with those pills, the protagonist can really speed up his cultivation a lot. Schwantian, still lost in the situation, asks why the two of them are looking at each other without saying anything. Xingjun tells the protagonist that his house seems quite big. The protagonist asks what he means by that. Xingjun says that from today on, they will be a family, but Schwantian throws him outside and says that he cannot stay in his house. Xingjun knocks on the door and asks the protagonist to wait a moment, because he can provide all kinds of pills he needs to cultivate immortality. Sixizi questions why the protagonist will not let him stay there, since Xingjun can make all kinds of immortality pills and will be of great benefit to his cultivation. The protagonist says that this is not a social welfare home. Besides, his sister will not agree to it. Xingjun keeps knocking on the door and tells the protagonist that with his current cultivation rate, it will take him at least a year and a half to reach the Qi training stage. But he has a pill there, and if he takes it, he will reach the stage immediately. In addition, he also has a robe that is one of the best treasures in heaven, and he can have all those things if he lets him stay inside the house. Schwantian becomes a little more interested and opens the door, asking if all of that is true. Xingjun gives his word, saying that he would never lie about such a thing. The protagonist thinks that he does not know when he will be able to reach the Qi training stage on his own, so that pill is truly tempting. He takes the robe and the pill and closes the door again, saying that he will keep them. Sixizi says that the protagonist took the pill and the treasure, but kicked Xingjun out again. Schwantian explains that it is because his face was very ugly, so he needs to stay outside for a while. An hour later, Xingjun enters the house and the protagonist says that it is fine and that he will sleep on the floor of his room, but he must stay in his room or in the living room. Besides, he is absolutely not allowed to go near Yunshu or her room. Xingjun says that it is fine and asks him to calm down because everything was already very clear. The protagonist looks at the pill and asks if it is really any good. Xingjun takes advantage of this and says that he has not bathed in days, so he will use the bathroom first. Xuantian prepares to take the pill, however, the goddess asks him to wait a minute. She explains that this immortality pill will not work there. He needs to go to the forest. Only with the support of its spiritual energy will he be able to maximize his potential. Xuantian explains that at that time there will be no bus available to go to the forest, and paying for a taxi there is very expensive. Sixizi holds his face and says that this will be easy to solve because she will teach him a footwork technique. It allows him to fly through the air and he only needs to follow the method to reach the rooftop. As soon as they go to the rooftop, the protagonist asks if she is sure that he will be able to fly. The goddess says that as long as he follows the formula she just taught him, there will be no problem. He concentrates, tries to fly, and actually succeeds. Sixizi says that they need to be quick because his sister will come back at 10 o'clock, so they cannot waste time. A short time later, they arrive in the middle of the forest, and she says that this place has a lot of spiritual energy, so he can consume the pill there. She emphasizes that this pill was refined with divine power and is not as complex as ordinary pills. He can absorb it without worrying about affecting his foundation. The trick to refining the pill is to use spiritual energy to catalyze the energy inside it. He has to catalyze the spiritual energy to activate the pill and convert as much of its energy as possible. The more he absorbs within a certain period of time, the better it will be. Xuantian concentrates as much as possible, however. He begins to feel an intense heat because the pill's energy is spreading through his body, and every refined bit is increasing his body's strength. Suddenly, he enters a subspace again and asks what the sphere in front of him is. Sixizi explains that inside that sphere is the monster he had previously absorbed, and now he can try to refine it with spiritual energy. The Forest King was furious, asking what place that was and ordering someone to get him out of there immediately. Suddenly, he begins to be surrounded by a strange energy and questions what is happening. The protagonist manages to absorb him perfectly, and a column of energy begins to rise from his body. The goddess congratulates him because he has finally entered the Chi training stage. Meanwhile, at the site of the battle with the Forest King, Stark observes the area and says that there is definitely something wrong with the Hero Association's information. Judging by the level of the fight, there should be remains of the Forest King. Only the power of the special system could make the Forest King disappear without leaving any traces. And without the Forest King's remains, the organization's plan has been delayed again. Suddenly, he sees the column of energy coming out of the protagonist and is surprised, saying that there is a human nearby. He goes over there and realizes that he was right. He charges in with everything, saying that he failed to complete his mission, so he will have some fun attacking that guy for a bit. But the protagonist senses someone's presence and slaps Stark across the face, throwing him far away with great force. He is surprised, asking what that was, who that guy is, and why he was attacked out of nowhere. However, he is quite happy since the power of his strike was much stronger than before. Stark asks who that guy is because he seems weaker than a C-rank hero, and yet he was able to injure him. Irritated by this, he attacks again, saying that he will finish that boy immediately. But the protagonist manages to dodge the attack again, asking who Stark is and why he is attacking him. Stark tries to attack again, saying that inferior creatures do not deserve to know his name, but the protagonist dodges again. Stark accelerates quickly, thinking that he underestimated that boy, but now he will have to show his true speed. Xuantian starts being overwhelmed in the fight, and questions how that guy suddenly became so strong. Stark appears behind the protagonist and lands a very powerful kick, throwing him against a rock, asking if that is all he has. Xuantian calls his master, saying that he was winning easily before, and questions why it is so difficult to defend himself now. Sixizi explains that when the protagonist reached the Chi training stage, he activated a bit of the resonance of the power of heaven and earth, and that is why he became so strong. However, that resonance has already ended now. Xuantian understands and asks his master if she could teach him a bit of combat magic, otherwise he will not be able to defeat that guy. The goddess says that it may be too complicated for him to learn in a single minute, but she has an idea, saying that she once developed a magical art that might be suitable for him now. Xuantian asks what kind of magic it is. His master approaches him and kisses him on the head. She explains that this technique is called cloud-piercing finger. It allows him to instantly gather the energy around him and release it to produce a powerful destructive force. She transmitted the entire method of using it into the protagonist's mind and asks if he managed to understand. Embarrassed, he says yes. Stark starts flying and says that the protagonist has disappointed him greatly, so he will end this fight now. But Xuantian uses the destructive finger, saying that the one who will be killed there is Stark. The two attacks collide, but the protagonist easily gains the advantage and hits Stark, completely destroying him. The power was so strong that it left planet Earth, causing massive devastation in the clouds and atmosphere. He is impressed, seeing that this magic is extremely powerful. His master is happy and hugs him, saying that he did a great job, but the protagonist asks her to let go because he cannot breathe. Suddenly his phone rings and he sees that it is already 11 o'clock at night. He gets worried, saying that it is already late and he needs to go back immediately. Meanwhile, inside the house, Yunshu was playing cards with Xingjun and celebrates, saying that she won again. Xingjun says that mortals have advantages in playing games they invented. However, now he has already understood everything and wants to play again. Yunshu starts shuffling, saying that even so, she will win again. The protagonist says that he will join this round but feels relieved, thinking that apparently the two of them got along well. Yunshu goes over to the protagonist and says that his friend is very stupid because she has already beaten him many times. Xuantian apologizes to his sister, saying that he forgot to discuss it with her first, and says that this guy will stay with them for a while, asking if there is any problem. Yunshu smiles and says that it is fine because if he is her brother's friend, then there is no problem. She thinks that this is the first time her brother has invited a friend into that house, so she needs to support him. Xingjun thanks Xuantian for letting him stay there. The protagonist sees that he is wearing his father's clothes and thinks that his mother and father's room has been locked for so long that this feeling is a little strange. Somewhere in the Western Sea, two people were talking about how recovering Stark had failed. The boss says that this location is the headquarters of the Hero Association, but the mission is not difficult because they only need to recover the remains, and he questions what is happening. The woman explains that her superpower is the Tree of Life, so she can confirm the condition and location of anyone who has swallowed the seed of her power. However, now she has completely lost Stark's life signs. The boss gets irritated, shouting that the members of the Hero Association have ruined everything again. He asks for this to be sent to the King of the Deep Sea. It is time for them to know what happens when they get in the way of their plans. The next day, inside the school, the girls from Class A were talking. One of them says that she heard there will be a new student that day and asks if anyone knows who he is. Another girl says that she knows because she was there the day before, and he is very handsome. Besides, he could easily defeat 5 guys at once. She emphasizes that this is not all because she also heard from the rumors that he ranked first in yesterday's freshman tests. The other girl is impressed to know that a handsome and strong guy will join their class, so she needs to try to win him over. The pink-haired girl tells her friend to forget it and says that the protagonist is already with Xingxuan because she saw the two of them holding hands yesterday, and they seemed very close. Another girl hears the conversation and thinks that apparently Xingxuan has feelings for this boy, and he is a powerful person. So how could she let such a good opportunity pass? She needs to take from Xingxuan everything she wants to have. A short time later, the protagonist enters the classroom and the teacher announces that today they will have a newly arrived student who transferred into Class A. His name is Zhou Xuantian. He introduces himself to everyone and emphasizes that he will definitely become an S-rank hero. Xingxuan's eyes shine, thinking that the protagonist is very ambitious. However, becoming a hero of that rank will not be that easy. The teacher tells him that there is an empty seat beside Xingxuan and that he can sit there. Another boy looks at the protagonist and questions whether he really has superpowers because his spirit does not feel anything coming from him. Another teacher takes over the class, saying that that day's lesson is about real combat practice. She says that Xingxuan has the best grades in this subject, so she needs to help the new student. The other female student raises her hand, telling the teacher that she also wants to learn more about the new student and asks if she can join them. She thinks that she will steal the protagonist right in front of Xingxuan. The teacher says that it is fine and lets her join the two of them. The boys start asking who that boy is and why the two most beautiful girls in that class want to join him. Zerui gets irritated when he sees that guy at the center of attention again, so he needs to teach him a lesson. The teacher asks everyone to prepare to go to the battlefield. A short time later, they go to the combat field, and the teacher asks everyone to take their positions. Xuantian gets worried because spiritual energy is scarce in that place. Besides, he does not know if he can use the cloud-piercing finger there. The girl from before clings to the protagonist and greets him, but he is surprised and asks who she is. The girl introduces herself, saying that she is Xia Jiki, and that it is a pleasure to meet him. She emphasizes that he was very cool the day before because she was watching everything. Xuantian smiles and says that he is flattered to receive so many compliments. But Xingxuan interrupts their conversation and tells the protagonist not to believe that hussy, since she did not even go to school the day before. Jiki asks why Xingxuan is slandering her and emphasizes that Xuantian needs to believe her words. But Xingxuan grabs the protagonist's other arm and tells that woman to get away because she will not let the protagonist be deceived. The atmosphere heats up between the two of them and they ask who he is going to believe. He does not know what to answer, but the teacher approaches, saying that the exercise will begin soon and that they need to prepare. He feels relieved because, thanks to the teacher, he managed to escape that situation. Suddenly, the room starts flashing, and Xingxuan asks what kind of monster they're going to fight. Jiki explains that the monsters are random, and each team deals with a different monster. Suddenly, the C-rank Frostthorn Octopus appears with the abilities of freezing, illusion, and regeneration. Xingxuan complains, saying that it is the monster she hates the most. The octopus starts attacking, but they manage to dodge the first attack. The protagonist says that he will try and uses the cloud-piercing finger, but it basically does nothing against the octopus, leaving the two girls a little surprised by that. the monster becomes even more furious and starts attacking with greater intensity. Xingxuan warns that the tentacles are annoying and powerful. The protagonist begins advancing at high speed, saying that if the cloud-piercing finger cannot be used, then he will have to choose close combat. He manages to cut off one of the monster's tentacles, but Xingxuan says that the protagonist is being very foolish and asks if he does not know that it is forbidden to cut or try to injure the frost-thorn octopus, because that is common sense in monster science. Suddenly, a large amount of fog is released, and the protagonist asks if more tentacles are approaching. Xingxuan manages to save him and explains that as soon as the tentacles are amputated, it will activate its fog ability, making it even harder to attack it again. But several other monsters also appear. Jiki passes by him and says that it was a great attack, however, he cannot repeat it again. She emphasizes that time is limited, so they can leave that to her. She activates Assassin Shadow mode and starts attacking at great speed, saying that by attacking the octopus's weak points, those injuries will soon disappear. Xuantian is impressed, seeing that she is very good. Jiki finally manages to find the real one and attacks its eye, but she is tricked and lured into another illusion. Suddenly, she is trapped by the tentacles. But Xingxuan manages to use her explosions to free her. A warning is issued saying that only 30 seconds remain until the end of the exercise, so they need to hurry. The protagonist gets confused and says that she had said they could not attack the tentacles, but now she is exploding all of them. Xingxuan explains that the monster's fog ability has already been activated, so the situation could not get any worse than it already is because it is already about to explode. She emphasizes that its weakness is the eye. If they destroy the core in the eye, that monster will die, but they do not have time to search for the real one, so there is no other alternative but to explode all of them. However, the explosions were not effective either. Suddenly, more tentacles head toward them, and the three of them end up being caught. Jiki shouts that it is impossible and asks how the octopus grew so much, because it was using illusion abilities to make them underestimate its strength when it first appeared. There were only 10 seconds left until the end of the exercise, and Xingxuan says that this time they will fail. However, the protagonist cuts all the tentacles around him and tells them not to lose heart because that much time is enough. The night before, while returning home, Xuantian asked his master if the cloud-piercing finger requires him to use his own spiritual power to channel the energy of heaven and earth into a single line. Because of that, he needs to ask what happens if there is a shortage of spiritual power between heaven and earth. She explains that using his own spiritual power to channel the energy of heaven and earth when casting spells not only allows him to maximize the preservation of his own spiritual power, but also grants him great power. Just like he did with that guy, considering his current strength, by using the power of heaven and earth, he is able to obtain power equivalent to that of an S-rank superhero. However, when executing that move, the surrounding energy will be consumed, which makes it difficult to recover in the short term. When there is a shortage of the spiritual power of heaven and earth, or when that power is non-existent, it is necessary to rely entirely on his own spiritual power to perform magic. However, this method significantly consumes his own spiritual power, leading to a reduction in his power. Because of that, he should only use it when it is truly necessary. Using the cloud-piercing finger through his own spiritual power should be equivalent to the full power of an A-rank hero. Back in the present, the protagonist concentrates and says that playtime is over now, and he will show everyone what he is truly capable of. He uses the cloud-piercing finger, easily destroying the tentacles and the octopus's core. He thinks that temporarily he may have become a C-rank hero now, but after that attack, his spiritual energy was almost completely exhausted. However, that attack not only destroyed the monster, but also caused a hole in the combat field. The other students are impressed, asking what power that is, because it is certainly the power of an A-rank hero. Xingxuan hugs the protagonist, saying that it was incredible, because he managed to defeat the monster with a single move. Jiki, also impressed, says that apparently he had been hiding his true power from the very beginning. As soon as the other people gather, the announcement is issued, saying that the exercise has been completed and that they can go to the other area. The students are impressed to see that Group D obtained a perfect score, because the newcomer was very lucky. Besides having two beautiful girls accompanying him, he also managed to get a perfect score. Zerui goes over to the protagonist and says that he was just lucky, but the protagonist says that his envy is very sharp and that he needs to be a little careful if he does not want to cut himself. Zerui emphasizes that they still have not finished their fight, so he asks if the protagonist would like to reschedule it for 3 days from now, and if the protagonist loses, he needs to leave the school forever. Xuantian asks what happens if he wins. Zerui says that he will kneel and call him father 3 times. Meanwhile, at her house, Kanglin was watching the news. The news said that last night, a strange light suddenly appeared in the forest and many citizens shared photos of the incident on the internet. Some internet users speculate that this may be related to the Forest King's attack, so today they invited renowned scientists to debate the matter. Kanglin thinks that it might be what she is thinking. She calls Molong and says that she needs him to investigate whether any major incidents occurred in some of the cities where Stark had been in recent months. She gets up because she needs to personally check the forest. While driving to the site of the incident, she receives the news that Molong has already obtained the results, and all the cities Stark passed through were targeted by S-rank monster attacks. And all those attacks occurred before his arrival. She thinks that apparently she was right and that Guy is part of Cthulhu, an organization dedicated to the fusion of humans and monsters. They are probably after the Forest King's remains, and there must be some clue. The protagonist returns home and complains to his master, saying that there are many limitations associated with using the cloud-piercing finger, and asks if there is not a slightly better spell to use. She emphasizes that there is no quick solution for cultivating immortality. When he reaches the foundation building stage and accumulates more spiritual energy in his body, this problem will no longer exist. Xuantian goes to Xingjun, who helped him break through last time, because he would like to get a little more. Xingjun explains that that pill should only be consumed when the user cannot progress or when they are at a lower level. On the other hand, he can offer some fire pills, which have the potential to quickly increase his magical power, as well as some Xuan Ming pills, which have the ability to heal wounds quickly. The protagonist accepts, saying that this is better than nothing. Besides, it is getting late and he had better hurry and go to the forest to absorb more spiritual energy. Meanwhile, on the way, Kanglin finds Stark and says that he's under arrest. Stark thinks that this really is not his lucky day, because when he finally managed to recover his physical body, that woman appeared. He charges forward quickly, saying that she has made him very upset, so she needs to die. She tries to block the attack, but realizes that his strength is immensely great. He throws her far away while thinking that when he meets the protagonist again, he will tear him to pieces, since that toy is not fit to play with him. Kanglin manages to get up and tries to counterattack. She uses her robot to hold Stark down. He becomes desperate because he cannot hide, since he has just recovered his body and has not fully recovered his strength yet. Fortunately, it is raining, so he can use that kind of power. He attacks with a breath of deadly energy and manages to stop her attack, counterattacking at the same time. Kanglin thinks that the intelligence indicated that this man is an S-rank wanted criminal, but he only has A-rank strength. Stark manages to defeat her and starts complaining because of her, he basically had to spend all his life energy. Because of that, he needs to turn her into his food. However, he notices that someone is approaching, and maybe it could be people from the Hero Association, so it is better to retreat immediately. A short time later, the protagonist arrives, wondering why it looks like there was a fight in that place. Looking a little farther ahead, he notices that there is a woman lying on the ground, and when he checks her identification, he realizes that she is from the Hero Association. He tries to wake her up, asking if she is okay, but she does not respond. He tells his master that she is badly injured, that her pulse is weak, and that it is too late to take her to the hospital, asking what they should do. Sixizi says that he received the Xuan Ming pills so he can try using them. He tries to give one to her, but in the state she is in, she will not be able to swallow it on her own. He remembers a similar scene from a movie he had seen on TV and tries to do the same, passing the medicine to her from inside his mouth into hers. It works, and her injuries begin to heal. The protagonist realizes that the pill works very quickly and that it will not take long for her to fully recover. Her robot approaches and shows what really happened. Xuantian is surprised to see that guy again because he was sure he had killed him before. Apparently, he was the one who hurt that girl. The robot dog keeps barking at the protagonist, and this makes him realize that maybe the dog wants him to follow it. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, Qing Meng was collecting some mushrooms, saying that her father was out of town again, so she needs to make dinner by herself. Stark manages to approach and realizes that he has found a girl without superpowers and she will be his source of energy. Meanwhile, the protagonist was running as fast as he could, following the dog, and sees a huge explosion, saying that apparently another fight is happening right there. As soon as he gets closer, he sees Qing Meng fighting against Stark and asks what she is doing there alone. He places Kanglan on the ground and asks the robot dog to stay there and take care of her, because he will handle that situation. Qing Meng was already being pressured in the fight, wondering who that guy is because he is very fast, so she cannot hit him. Besides, she cannot allow him to get any closer, otherwise she will be eliminated right there. Stark keeps dodging the explosions while growing increasingly irritated, wondering if that woman was not powerless, so why are the papers she throws so powerful? Besides, he thinks that he will be in serious trouble if those noises attract people from the Hero Association, so he needs to eliminate her as quickly as possible. Stark throws a tree at her, but she does not back down, thinking that she needs to deal with him alone. She explodes the tree, but that was only a distraction. He approaches quickly, saying that now this is the end of everything, but before he can touch her, she simply disappears and appears in the protagonist's arms. Xuantian prepares to use the cloud-piercing finger again, asking if Stark is ready to die for the second time. He attacks, completely destroying Stark's body again. Qing Meng is impressed and asks if the protagonist was always that strong. He takes her down to the ground, asking if she is okay. She says yes, however, she does not know what he is doing there or how he used such a terrifying power. He emphasizes that this is a long story and asks if she still has more of those magic papers. He points to Stark's remains, saying that apparently he has the ability to regenerate, but the power he just used consumed all the spiritual energy in that place. So he needs her to use those explosives again. Ching-Meng agrees, saying that she has enough explosives to make him disappear completely. She attacks again, causing huge explosions. Xuantian says that now it should probably be fine. She thanks him, saying that he saved her life. Xuantian says that he is only doing his part because she saved his life before, so now they are even. He asks if she lives in that forest. Ching-Meng explains that her family has lived there for generations in the Taoist temple, so she can take him to her home. As the two of them walk, she says that she still does not know the protagonist's name and introduces herself, saying that her name is Dongfang Ching-Meng. Xuantian also introduces himself, apologizing for not saying it earlier. Ching-Meng says that it is fine and asks what he is doing there and why that strange guy was also attacking her. The protagonist takes a deep breath, saying that once again, it is a long story to tell, but suddenly he remembers that he was almost forgetting the other girl. He runs back, saying that he just remembered something important and asks her to wait there because he will be right back. Meanwhile, at the deep-sea base, the television news was reporting that recently, passenger ships near Mirage have often been attacked by mutant monsters. Among them, there are many monsters classified above A rank, and the Hero Association has sent a team led by Dongxia to handle the situation. The girl from before is happy with this news, saying that this is very good because now they only need to wait until they arrive. The other man asks her if that means the material she sent there really works. She says yes, but tells him that he cannot kill the S-rank heroes because the boss plans to keep them alive to extract their powers. The man smiles and tells her not to worry because he promises to leave them alive. She leaves the room, saying that she needs to go now because in a few days she will check the results. Xuantian reaches Kanglin, and she was already standing, saying that she was waiting for him. The protagonist asks if she is okay. Embarrassed, she says yes, emphasizing that he not only healed her wounds, but also completed the objective of her task, and she remembers the kiss he had given her. Xuantian gets a little embarrassed, asking if she really managed to remember everything. She explains that her robot dog had recorded everything that happened, and praises the protagonist, saying that he is very strong. She asks if he is some new hero from the Hero Association, and also asks about that other girl. Xuantian starts laughing, saying that he is not a hero because he is still only 16 years old and is studying at Mirage City's superhero school. This leaves her impressed and astonished, asking if he is really just a student, since he just eliminated an S-rank wanted criminal. And on top of that, he is only 16 years old. This makes her ask why he does not join the Hero Association. The protagonist, still embarrassed, asks if she can keep this a secret because he wants to learn more at the hero school, and because of that, he sincerely asks her not to tell anyone about that girl. He thinks that his temporary strength is only C rank, so he cannot join the association right away. Kanglin ends up agreeing, saying that extremely powerful people like him always have their own peculiarities. She introduces herself, saying her name and that she is A rank. She gives him something, telling him to keep it. And if he needs anything, he can feel free to call her because she will be available to help him. She says goodbye to the protagonist, asking him to go back to his girlfriend. He gets embarrassed again and tries to explain, saying that she is not his girlfriend. A short time later on Wudang Mountain at the Taoist temple, the protagonist enters, saying that the place is incredible and asks why he cannot see any of those buildings from the outside. Ching-Meng explains that there is a special prohibition talisman there so other people cannot see it. The protagonist looks at the talisman and tells his master that it is radiating spiritual energy and that he feels it is similar to the magic he learned. Sixizi says that he is correct. The magic contained in the paper talisman is a branch of immortality. She emphasizes that she previously observed that Ching-Meng can only use paper talismans and does not have knowledge of magical arts. And apparently, there is a possibility that other powerful immortals appeared in that world and taught these things to those people. Fiery, who was sitting inside, says that after a long wait, someone has finally returned because he thought no one lived there anymore. He approaches Ching-Meng, saying that she must be the one he is looking for. She draws her sword and prepares to fight, asking who he is and how he managed to break through the prohibition talisman and get there. Fiery asks her to calm down and explains that he was taught how to pass through the prohibition talisman because he is only there to deliver a message. He hands over a letter saying that her brother, Dongfang Yunshuo, asked him to deliver it to her. Ching-Meng holds the letter, a little confused. Fiery says goodbye, saying that he has already finished what he came there to do, so he had better leave. But Ching-Meng asks him to wait a moment and asks if he really is her brother's friend, then asks how her brother is doing now. But Fiery laughs, saying that it is not exactly a friendship because he has been treated like a servant for a long time. Besides, he emphasizes that he does not know much about her brother since it has been quite a while since the two of them last saw each other, and he simply disappears. Xuantian is surprised to find out that she has a brother. She says yes, but explains that she has not heard from him since he left home a few years ago. She calls the protagonist inside for a while. The two go into a room and sit down to talk. As soon as she takes out what was inside her brother's letter, she realizes that it seems to be a special talisman and is completely different from any she has ever seen. Suddenly, someone calls for hers, and she becomes completely terrified, saying that her father has just arrived and that he does not allow her to talk to strangers. If he finds the protagonist there, things will get serious. He thinks about what could happen with an angry father seeing a boy alone with his daughter. Chingmeng tells him that he can leave through the other side. He says that it is fine, but he needs at least 1 second. He writes on a piece of paper and gives it to her, saying that this is his contact number, and that if she has any problems in the future, she only needs to contact him and he will solve them. The protagonist runs away and she feels happy, thinking that apparently she has made a new friend. Zhao Shu enters the house and asks his daughter what she is looking at. She hides the paper and says that it is nothing, that she was only thinking about some things. The next day, inside the superhero school, the teacher says that they chose the combat department because they want to become heroes. And next, she will go into more detail about superpowers. She begins explaining that according to general theory, superpowers are divided into the psychokinesis system, the enhancement system, and the special system. The psychokinesis system is the manipulation of various things through willpower, including the elemental system. The enhancement system strengthens oneself or others, and the special system is any other system that does not belong to the first two. She asks Xingxuan to show psychokinesis to everyone. Xingxuan goes to the front and explains that psychokinesis is the ability to control the things around oneself through one's own will. She says that she will give an example and says that she will distribute all the articles on the desks. However, silence fills the classroom and nothing happens. She becomes worried, asking herself why it is not working. The protagonist also notices and wonders why it is not working, and maybe her bracelet is not working at that moment. But Xingxuan insists and orders the things to start levitating. Suddenly, the notebooks, pencils, and everything else begin to float. However, she is still confused and wonders why they are floating, because she does not feel that her power is being used. The truth is that the protagonist was silently giving her a little help. She realizes this and sees that he is secretly doing all of it. Around the school, she was alone, and still not understanding what was happening, decides to check with her mother. The Water Witch answers and asks her daughter if everything is all right. She explains to her mother that her bracelet simply stopped working, and her father is on a mission in the nearby waters. So she asks if he is okay. Her mother explains that he is currently at the bottom of the ocean, and maybe the underwater environment is affecting the signal, and asks her to relax because he is an S-rank superhero. Tina enters the room and stays silent while the president continues explaining to her daughter that her bracelet is activated based on her power, which in turn is affected by the environment. Xingxuan says that it is fine and that apparently she will have to wait until he returns from the mission and asks her mother to tell her father to be careful. As soon as they hang up, the president tells Tina that they need to keep the fact that Dongxia was captured a secret and arrange the rescue immediately. 1 hour earlier in the city's maritime area, Dongxia was fighting against one of the members of that organization. The Horned Man says that they are in the ocean and that there he becomes invincible. He advances quickly and starts clashing blows with Dongxia, who feels a little pressure when receiving the hits. However, he tells his opponent that he is far too confident. But he thinks that because of that place, the power of his long-range attack has been greatly weakened, and he needs to find another way. He multiplies himself to gain a slight advantage, but the Horned Man only thinks that he will have a little difficulty capturing that guy alive without the equipment. He starts creating several whirlpools, saying that it is all useless, because that entire ocean is his shield and Dongxia's attacks are too weak. But Dongxia does not back down, saying that it does not matter whether they are in the ocean or not, his punch can pierce even the sky. The two continue clashing blows, and the news helicopter sees an extremely large wave compared to the beach umbrellas in the middle of the beach, which looked like mere ants. The Horned Man tells the superhero that he is indeed very strong, but unfortunately, it is not enough to break through his defenses. Dongxia is impressed and asks how the opponent managed to come out even after that attack, because if one punch is not enough, he will throw 100. The Horned Man begins to realize that he will not last much longer, since this is becoming increasingly difficult and he needs to use the equipment soon, otherwise he may really end up losing. Their fight becomes more and more aggressive, however. The Horned Man grabs Dongxia's hand and says that this is the end of the game for him. Dongxia realizes that something is wrong because he cannot use his powers, and the Horned Man finally manages to imprison him. Meanwhile, at school, the protagonist was walking and looks at his phone, wondering why Chingmeng still has not added him as a friend, and maybe he should have let her send him her contact information so he could take the initiative. Xingxuan runs over to him and asks him to wait, thanking him for helping her during that class. The protagonist says that it was nothing because she had helped him before too. Xingxuan, surprised and also a little confused, says that she thought he had no superpowers before, so how did he manage to do it, and asks if he could share that experience with her. Xuantian tries to explain it in a simpler way, saying that he simply woke up that way and that there is not much to share. He thinks that his master had said this matter is only between the two of them, so he cannot say much. He says goodbye, saying that there is a nearby supermarket offering big discounts on eggs, so he cannot miss that opportunity, and leaves. But Jingshuan does not easily swallow the explanation and says that, apparently, the protagonist is very suspicious because she has the feeling that he is hiding something. A short time later, she goes to the protagonist's house, saying that luckily, she managed to get his address. And if she can hide inside his house, she will find out what he is trying to conceal. As soon as she enters, she emphasizes that she needs to find a place to hide, but she notices that everything in that room seems a little strange. She holds a bottle in her hand and questions if that was what allowed him to awaken. As soon as she uncorks it, she smells something different. Xuantian returns home and shouts to Xingjun that there was a sale at the supermarket today and he bought his favorite noodles. The protagonist asks where he is, and his master explains that he had said he needed some herbs to refine pills, so he is probably out of town. Xingxuan, who was hiding, surprises the protagonist, hugs him, calls him daddy, and says that he finally came back. Xuantian becomes confused and scared, asking her what she is doing inside his house and why she is calling him father. Sixizi finds the opened bottle and tells the protagonist that maybe she accidentally smelled the potion made by Xingjun. She continues hugging and rubbing herself against the protagonist while still calling him daddy, saying that she missed him very much. Xuantian tries to wake her up, saying that he is not her father and that she needs to pull herself together. His master explains that that potion has little effect on those who cultivate immortality, but ordinary people can get drunk for an entire day after inhaling even a little. So the only way to sober her up is to force the energy out. His master places her hand inside her belly, but as soon as she touches it, she notices something strange and emphasizes that this little girl has a spiritual root in her body, a fire spiritual root that has an affinity with spiritual energy. The protagonist becomes happy, asking if that means she was also born with the gift of cultivating immortality. His master says that is exactly right and thinks that although she is not as qualified as the protagonist, she is not bad either. Shixizi asks the protagonist to wake her up with spiritual energy. That way, she will also be able to see if the protagonist has improved in controlling spiritual energy. Xuantian says that it is all right and touches her belly, applying spiritual energy. This causes her to throw up the potion she had smelled earlier. His master emphasizes that she observed that little girl for a long time, and that she seems like a very good girl. When she wakes up, the protagonist needs to tell her about his cultivation of immortality, and if she decides to accompany him to practice, that process will also help the protagonist a lot. A short time later, she had woken up, and he explained the whole story to her. Xingxuan becomes happy and excited, saying that it is incredible that something exists beyond superpowers. She holds his hand, saying that she would also like to learn because she is tired of depending on her father's powers. Shixizi says that if she has agreed, then the protagonist needs to take the first step. She uses her energy inside the protagonist's body, saying that the girl still cannot see her soul, so she needs to use his body. As soon as she takes control of Xuantian, she asks Xingxuan not to move. He touches her lips and she's a little surprised, asking what he's going to do. He kisses her on the forehead and she quickly begins to be taken to another dimension, questioning what that is, because she feels something emerging inside her own body. As soon as she opens her eyes, she sees Sixizi and says that she is very beautiful, asking if she is the protagonist's master. Xuantian says yes, and says that apparently now she can also see her. His master says that it really worked, but Jingxuan, still lost, asks what it was that she just saw. His master explains that she illuminated her spiritual consciousness with the protagonist's spiritual energy and that her spiritual root was activated. Jingxuan hugs her new master, thanking her and asking if she can now also use magic. Sizizi asks her to be a little patient and take that Flying Star Sword manual to study for a while. Xingxuan thanks her deeply for everything happening there. The protagonist says that it is already getting very late and asks her to stay for dinner, because he will cook, and she agrees. Sometime later, Yunshu had also arrived and met her brother's new friend. Xingxuan tastes a little and is impressed, saying that he is a great cook, and starts eating a lot. Yunshu even gets a little worried, asking her to slow down a bit. Xingxuan explains that it has been quite a while since she had dinner with so many people, so her appetite increased a lot. Xuantian asks her if her parents do not have dinner with her. She becomes a little sad and explains that they are very busy with work, so they do not have time for her. When she is at home, she's accompanied by a robot nanny. The protagonist is surprised and says that must be pretty bad. He thinks that since she is the daughter of heroes, she would have a happy and wonderful life, but apparently he was a little wrong. Yunshu says that Xingxuan can feel free to come there whenever she wants, because she will always be welcome. Xingxuan becomes happy and says that she will take advantage of that opportunity because she has a lot of advice to ask the protagonist for. After dinner the next day, they were watching breaking news saying that this could be the greatest crisis in the history of the Hero Association. Recently, the association sent several S-rank heroes to annihilate the King of the Deep Sea, but no one returned. including Dongxia, who ranks third among the S-rank heroes. The protagonist asks if that is not her father, asking if he is okay. Xingxuan does not know what to answer because her mother had not told her what had happened to her father. She decides to act calmly, telling the protagonist that it is better for them to leave that to the Hero Association because they will take care of everything and do not need to worry. She turns off the television and the two return to cultivating, but his master notices that she is a little absent-minded and tells her not to get distracted. Xingxuan tells her master that she learned to sense spiritual energy yesterday and learned many small spells. At this pace, how long will it take for her to reach the Qi training stage? She asks if she cannot take a pill like the one the protagonist took before, but Sixiji says that she cannot think about taking shortcuts. The pill the protagonist took to enter the Qi training stage had side effects. Although he is in the Qi training stage, his spiritual energy has been depleted twice as much as the average person's. Xuantian gets a little angry, saying that he did not know anything about that and asks why she did not tell him about it before. His master emphasizes that there is no reason to worry. As long as he practices carefully, the side effect will naturally disappear once he reaches the foundation stage. Xingjun returns with a big smile. His master asks if he managed to find all the herbs he needed. He says that this is the last medicinal herb, Jade Ganoderma. It is used to enhance the capacity for storing spiritual energy and will soon be refined. He asks who that little girl in the room is. Sixizi explains that she is her new disciple and that he arrived at just the right time. She asks what kind of magical weapons he has and tells him to bring some immediately so that her new disciple can defend herself. But he thinks about what his master just said, because all his magical weapons are meant for collecting medicinal materials and should not be given to anyone else. Sixizi scolds him, saying that he cannot hide them from her, and tells him to hurry up and take them out immediately. He hands over an invisibility jade, which can be used to become invisible. All the user needs to do is add a bit of spiritual energy. This item is very useful if the person needs to get out of an emergency situation. Xingxuan becomes happy and thanks him for the gift, thinking that now she can become invisible, and that means she can use this magical weapon to save her father. While she was in the middle of the street, she receives a call from her mother, who was furious, asking where she was because the butler had said that she had not returned yet. But Xingxuan argues with her mother, saying that this has absolutely nothing to do with her, and asks why she was hiding information about her father. The president becomes a little upset, saying that telling her daughter would not solve the problem and that all she needs to do is go to school and behave properly because she will take care of everything. Xingxuan asks what her mother meant by telling her would not solve the problem. She reminds her mother that she is the daughter of heroes and that if something happened to her dad, she does not know what she would do. She hangs up, telling her mother to forget all of this, since it is a waste of time. The president keeps trying to talk to her daughter, but she no longer answers. Xingxuan looks at a panel with her father's photo saying, "Mighty King." She thinks that other people may look down on her, but now even her own mother is looking down on her. She thinks that this time, she needs to rely on her own strength and prove to everyone that she is capable. She has always been labeled as the daughter of heroes since she was a child and has held herself to high standards. In their eyes, she was supposed to be superior to ordinary people in every aspect. Despite her great efforts to prove herself, she always tried to live up to everyone's expectations. Her powers also mysteriously disappeared, and every day she can only depend on her father's superpower to try to do anything. But now she no longer wants to live in her parents' shadows. Even if it means using the immortal art she just learned, she will do everything to save her father by herself, because her month of vehicle driving training was not in vain. Meanwhile, at the base, Xingjun was sleeping like a baby. She manages to find the base and becomes happy, saying that her father must be inside, but she still needs to break down that barrier. She launches 2 attacks, causing huge explosions. Inside, several guards notice the attack and shout that they are under attack and need to prepare for combat, because the attack has just made the energy system and the enchantment device unstable, so they need to send someone outside. The soldiers quickly go out, but because of her invisibility, she manages to pass by them calmly. As soon as she approaches the barrier, she thinks that the enchantment seems to be weakened and did not stop the ship's attack. She manages to pass through and attacks 2 guards at the same time. However, she still does not know where her father is being held, since that place is bigger than she expected. But she manages to take an item from the guards, and her father must be imprisoned somewhere on that floor. After searching for a while, she finally manages to find her father. She creates several swords and starts attacking, saying that she will save her father no matter what. Suddenly, the horned man appears, saying that apparently the person who interrupted his beautiful dreams was her. The next day, the protagonist was at school, but he was wondering why Xingxuan still had not arrived and whether maybe she was sick. Jiki sees the protagonist and says that she will not show up today and that since she did not come, she decided to ask. The protagonist becomes worried and asks what she is talking about. Jiki approaches, saying that she is sure Xingxuan does not want to go to school after her father was captured and that apparently now the protagonist is hers alone. But Xuantian pushes her away and asks when he became someone's property, then leaves the school. Talking to his master, he emphasizes that Xingxuan worked very hard and never missed school, so something must have happened. His master explains that she was distracted during training yesterday. The protagonist realizes that maybe she went to try to save her father, but she no longer even has powers, so she could not be stupid enough to do that. His master says that she has a feeling that the magical weapon given to her last night is very far away from there, and she really knows how to make people nervous. The protagonist becomes worried and runs out, asking what she could possibly do with so few techniques, so she needs to be saved. Zixizi tries to intervene, asking him to wait a moment, explaining that the protagonist needs to go back home and take the robe that was given to him. Besides, he needs to borrow Xingjun's hunter bell and Hunyuan bracelet, because if he goes to fight with nothing, it will be a dead end. While the two were flying over the sea, the protagonist asks his master if she can really know the exact location. His master says yes and emphasizes that they are already getting close. However, he needs to be careful in battle and must not die no matter what. Xuantian asks his master not to worry and to leave everything to him. He dives into the water and thinks that these things related to immortals are truly incredible, because by using that robe, he can breathe normally underwater and his movements are not restricted. However, he would like to test something first. He waves something that looks like a handkerchief and creates a huge whirlpool attacking the base. The guards become worried, questioning what is happening outside and whether it could be the heroes. Another guard looks at the cameras and says that there is indeed someone there, but the protagonist was simply tired of using those things. The system was unable to detect the target because the individual is not registered. The guards are surprised, saying that boy is not even registered by the Hero Association, so how can he have such incredible power? However, since he is a nobody, they can deal with that boy with a single shot from the water dragon cannon. The horned man enters the command room and asks his subordinates to wait, saying that he will deal with that boy himself. He thinks that this is the first time he has met someone with so much power over the ocean, so he is curious to see who will be crowned the king of the seas. Outside, the protagonist was still attacking, saying that he has already caused a huge mess, so why has no one come out yet? Suddenly, he realizes that an enormous volume of water is coming toward him and manages to defend himself. The horned man appears, saying that the protagonist was turning the ocean upside down with only a piece of cloth, and that is impressive. He creates several water sharks and orders them to attack the protagonist. Xuantian thinks that if he wants to take control, he will need to consume much more spiritual energy. However, if he strikes 2 more times, he will be exhausted. Even so, he creates a shield around himself, and all the sharks made of water turn back to attack their creator. The horned man is impressed, asking how that is possible and what kind of superpower that is, because he can even surpass his moves. Because of that, the horned man thinks that his opponent's power must not be psychokinesis, and is probably an area of the special system. He activates Dragon Claw Wave to counterattack, but the protagonist manages to advance, telling him to immediately release Xingxuan and all the heroes he imprisoned inside. The horned man grabs the piece of cloth, thinking that the protagonist must use that thing to control the waves. With a smile on his face, he tells the protagonist that he has to admit it is very brave of him to come there alone. He grips the cloth tightly and creates serpents to attack, emphasizing that the protagonist had better give up on those heroic dreams he is having. Xuantian becomes scared, seeing that his opponent's strength really is very great. However, since he wants that thing so badly, now he will receive it. The horned man manages to grab the cloth and thinks that as long as he destroys it, the protagonist will be unable to use his specialized power to control the waves. But when he tries to tear that piece of cloth apart, he becomes confused, since he cannot rip that old rag. The protagonist uses his powers, saying that now he will solve the problem, and wraps his opponent in the cloth. But the horned man manages to break free, asking if the protagonist thinks that old piece of cloth will contain him. He attacks the protagonist with everything he has, but his attack has no effect, and he is shocked. He keeps attacking with everything he has, but it is useless. Xuantian starts mocking the situation and asks if that is really how S-rank villains attack, because it is nothing but a joke, since all of them are very weak. He emphasizes that now it is his turn to attack. The horned man starts feeling pressured and thinks that the protagonist's weapons are very powerful, and he needs to force him into the barrier and then capture him, because he will not be able to defeat him while he has those weapons. Zixizi appears, telling the protagonist that he must not enter the barrier, because there is something inside restricting the flow of spiritual energy. He realizes that he was already very close to the barrier, and his master emphasizes that once he crosses that barrier, he will no longer be able to use immortal methods. His weapons are the only things he can rely on. The horned man takes advantage of this opening and advances, saying that now he will not be able to escape. Xuantian interrupts his attack with his piece of cloth and thinks that it is no wonder the heroes were captured. However, he will not die there and can escape at any moment using another weapon. And if that is the case, he will beat his opponent at his own game. He decides to enter the barrier on his own. The horned man creates a water dragon, saying that now that poor boy is trapped. But Xuantian already had a plan in mind. He needs to trick his opponent by pretending that the weapon is broken. He receives the attack, asking why his weapon is not working. But even after receiving the attack, he remains without a single scratch and starts laughing, telling his opponent that although his weapon is broken, he is still unable to defeat him. The horned man traps him inside a water bubble, saying that this does not matter because he cannot escape without his superpowers. Humans are the same as fish. He thinks that he needs to take that boy inside the bubble and then study his defensive weapons one by one. Schwantian keeps pretending to be scared and asks what that guy is doing, but all of this was going according to his plan. The horned man takes him inside, saying that since he wants to save those heroes so badly, then he will allow the protagonist to see with his own eyes their pathetic faces after losing their superpowers. He throws the protagonist into the room, telling him to behave, and emphasizes that tomorrow he will tell him how those heroes lost their powers. 5 minutes later, Schwantian goes to the door and realizes that apparently there is no one on the other side. Now he can turn that base into complete chaos, and it is time to use that bracelet. He calls upon Chaos to free the doors for the Mighty Supreme and generate yin and yang, and he orders his item to open it immediately. He easily manages to create a hole in the wall and looks around, saying that this bracelet is quite powerful, and he is sure Xingjun used to use it to do bad things. He keeps following the corridor, creating holes in every wall, but he cannot find anyone inside the rooms and wonders where they imprisoned Xingxuan. Meanwhile, in the level 1 room of the base, a girl was asking a young man if he had recovered his powers. Tick, the 11th S-rank superhero, says not yet, because he believes someone there has deactivated their superpowers. The 12th S-rank superheroine, named Siren, asks if it is possible that the enemy is a user of a special system. That is very troublesome. If they do not know how he activates his power, it will be difficult to escape. She becomes sad, saying that she has not done live streams for days, and if her fans find out the state she is in now, they will certainly abandon her. The protagonist manages to find the two of them, but thinks that the king of the deep sea even captured ordinary people, so he will come back there later to rescue the mother and the son. A short time later, he reaches the last room and finally manages to find Dongxia. He enters the room, happy, because he finally managed to find one of the people he was looking for. Dongxia looks at the protagonist and asks who he is and whether he was sent by the Hero Association to save him. The protagonist explains that he is Xingxuan's classmate and is there to rescue the two of them. Dongxia is surprised and asks if he really is a student, questioning if that was the superpower he used just now. The protagonist says that it is more or less like that and asks if he knows where they imprisoned his daughter. But Dongxia becomes possessed by rage and asks if the protagonist is really saying that they also captured Xingxuan, and that when he gets out of there, he will make all of them pay one by one. Schwantian asks him to wait a moment because he will free him now, but Dongxia asks the protagonist to wait because that cage is specially reinforced so he cannot open it. As soon as he gets out, an alarm will be triggered and he cannot use his powers right now. Because of that, he has a very important task for the protagonist to carry out. Since he managed to get in there alone, it means he is capable of taking on that task. Schwantian asks him to say what needs to be done and he will do it. Dongxia explains that somewhere inside that base there is a machine hidden that can nullify powers, and when he destroys it, Dongxia will be able to break free on his own. The protagonist says that when he found that base, he also discovered that there is some kind of enchantment outside it and asks where he can find it. Dongxia says that he read about it in an underground laboratory he had destroyed. This machine needs to be connected to electricity, and there must be a heavy army protecting it. It is difficult to fight them directly, so he suggests destroying the energy system. Schwantian says that he understands and that he will carry out the mission immediately. Meanwhile, the guards were drinking, telling everyone to relax, because the head captain is protecting her. Besides, the boss is in his own room, so they can have their own fun and no one will find out. They open the door saying that she is one of the top celebrity streamers, much better than the girl the boss captured yesterday. They ask Siren to play with them right now, but she gets irritated, asking how they dare do that. One of the guards keeps laughing, saying that now that they have lost their superpowers, she is just a weak woman, and the other one is an ordinary child, so there is nothing they can do. All she needs to do is obey the orders they are giving. Tick steps in front, saying that he will not allow it, but one of the guards kicks him, sending him flying away, telling him to get out of the way immediately. He gets ready and tells his colleagues that they can enjoy themselves as much as they want that night, because they will have a beautiful S-rank superheroine. She tries to attack, saying that they are nothing but a bunch of disgusting men, but the guards grab her foot and say that she can keep trying because the more she struggles, the more exciting things become. Suddenly, the protagonist opens the portal and punches the soldier in the face, knocking out one of his teeth, telling them to take their filthy hands off that boy's mother immediately. But Siren gets angry and shouts at the protagonist, asking who he is calling a mother and questioning whether she looks that old. Tick asks her to calm down because that boy just saved the two of them. The protagonist says that they cannot waste time, so he needs to quickly finish off those three idiots. With one attack, he manages to defeat all three at the same time. Siren is impressed asking if that is the boy's superpower. However, he should not be able to use his power inside that place, so who is he really? He goes over to one of the guards and takes one of their communicators, saying that now no one will disturb them for a while. Besides, they can also take that communicator and create a communication channel. If anything happens, they just need to call him immediately. Siren thanks him and asks if he was sent by the Hero Association, but the protagonist says that he is just a passing student. However, he has other things to do now and will come back to save them later. He opens the gate again and passes through the wall, leaving her surprised, because he managed to leave that place extremely easily. Meanwhile, in the security room, the guard was sleeping while the protagonist was doing all of that. Another guard enters and punches his companion in the head, calling him an idiot and asking who let him sleep there, because they need to send those heroes to Cthulhu and none of them can be missing. But as soon as he looks at one of the panels, he gets scared and asks how that boy managed to escape. The guard runs out saying that he is going there now and that his companion needs to sound the alarm and warn the boss. The two guards standing in the corridor say that it is very boring to stay there, so they need to go out and have some fun. The protagonist thinks that after a long time, he has finally arrived, but suddenly the alarm begins to sound and the two guards run toward him. He thinks that he does not have much time to waste and needs to race against time, defeats the two of them easily, and advances to the energy equipment room. As soon as he enters, he realizes that this seems to be the right place, and now all he needs to do is destroy it. But one of the guards tries to attack him from inside. However, his robe protects him from any attack. Meanwhile, inside the study room, the horned man was holding the protagonist's handkerchief, saying that it is very strange because the texture of the cloth is normal and it is also not a product made from superpowers, so why is it so resistant? However, he decides to leave that aside since the people from Cthulhu will go there to check and they will conduct a lot of research in that field, so he believes he should be able to get some answer. He starts dancing, saying that it is impossible to control the ocean with only a piece of cloth. Suddenly, the alarm starts ringing for him too. He asks what is happening, and one of the guards bursts through the door, shouting for the boss, but becomes a little surprised when he sees what he was doing. The horned man composes himself and asks what the problem is. The guard shouts in fear, saying that the guy they captured earlier escaped. The deputy chief is impressed, asking how he managed to do that since he cannot use his superpowers inside that place. He orders all the soldiers to stay exactly where they are because he will deal with this problem personally. The deputy chief runs out thinking that the protagonist was heading to the energy equipment room, so maybe he knows the secret. And if he lets all the heroes escape, those people from Cthulhu will tear him apart, so he needs to stop him immediately. Meanwhile, the guard who is trying to attack the protagonist questions how he can use his superpowers, because they have tested that machine so many times that it is impossible for there to be a bug. Schwantian laughs and attacks the soldier, saying that it is because he is the bug himself. He begins destroying all the energy equipment and laughs, saying that the task is complete. The girl from before, outside, was approaching, saying that something strange was happening because the machine's barrier disappeared and something is wrong. Chelsea, a member of Cthulhu, asks Monet if the heroes the boss asked them to collect did not escape. McCarter, another member of Cthulhu, says that this will actually be a little fun since she loves this game of cat and mouse. Monet becomes worried, saying that something happened, and asks Chelsea to go with her so they can check the machine. Meanwhile, McCarter needs to go check on the heroes. They reach level 3 of the base, and Chelsea realizes that the energy system is broken. Monet asks him to recharge the device immediately because she hopes those heroes have not realized that they recovered their powers. Chelsea starts laughing and uses his electricity power, saying that his turn has finally come. However, a huge explosion happens, throwing the two of them back. Dongxia appears, saying that this was already expected, and apparently the two of them are guilty. Monet asks Chelsea to leave that to her, and he needs to hurry and go get the other heroes. Meanwhile, on level 2 of the base, the protagonist was entering and sees McCarter attacking Siren and Tick. He cannot believe the two of them were being attacked again and asks who they are fighting now. Siren keeps attacking, saying that if she remembers correctly, that is the S-rank wanted criminal named McCarter, who was rescued by Cthulhu from Monty Island prison. She blocks the attacks and emphasizes that she did not expect anyone to recognize her. The protagonist starts moving inside the room, saying that the king of the deep sea is still around there, and now another problem like this has appeared. McCarter says that there is a rat sneaking around and tries to attack the protagonist, but Tick shouts for him to be careful and creates an ice barrier to protect him, asking if he is okay. The protagonist says yes and thanks him. McCarter gets even angrier, saying that this obstacle is very annoying. The protagonist steps in front of the two of them and Siren asks him to be careful because that woman is very fast. Schwantian thinks that they need to find a way to restrict that woman's movements. He notices an opportunity and attacks by sending the ring toward her. However, she defends herself, saying that this kind of attack will hardly hit. But the ring swerves, grows larger, and starts chasing her. The ring's speed is extremely greater than hers, and it manages to place itself around her body, imprisoning her. He tells the others to attack now. Tick uses Ice Pillar, and Siren attacks with Obliteration Arrow. The two attacks come at her with full force, and she cannot move. Outside, Chelsea realizes that the sound of the fight was coming from behind that wall. But suddenly, his companion is thrown hard into him, and the protagonist celebrates, saying that they managed to hit both of them with only one attack. He takes his ring back. Siren and Tick look at each other, wondering what kind of superpower the protagonist has, because they cannot feel any superpower coming from him, but he has a surprisingly impressive style. Suddenly, another huge explosion happens, drawing the attention of the three of them. The horned man appears, saying that he has finally found where that rat was hiding. Schwantian says that guy probably heard the noise from the fight and came to them. Siren and Tick step forward, and she says that guy is very strong and the protagonist has no superpowers and is not a member of the association, so he only needs to stay behind them and away from the battle. But Schwantian thanks her for the consideration, however. On a real battlefield, the opponent will not let anyone leave just because they do not have superpowers. Besides, that man is focused on him, so that fight is his. The two are impressed again, seeing that the protagonist is not only very strong, but also very confident. Tick says that he would at least like to help in that fight, but the deputy chief simply throws him away, telling him to get out of the way already. The protagonist takes advantage of that distraction and says that now it is his moment to attack, using the cloud-piercing finger. The attack was so powerful that it caused a huge explosion. He returns asking if he really managed to win the fight already, but the horned man shouts, saying that he was able to make him reveal his true form, which means he underestimated the protagonist. The three are impressed, saying that there is no way that guy managed to withstand that attack, but the truth is that he had transformed into a huge dragon. Siren says that they must keep attacking non-stop. However, the attacks were not working. Siren realizes that his dragon scales are very thick and that there is absolutely no way to pierce them. The dragon aims at the protagonist, saying that now he is going to hell, but Siren steps in front of the attack to save him. She falls unconscious to the ground. The protagonist tries to talk to her, but there is no response. He looks to the side and sees that Tick had also already been defeated. He questions what he should do now that both of his companions have been defeated. The horned man says that the protagonist only has two options. The first is to hand over the weapon in his hands and reveal its secrets. That way, he promises to let him leave without pain. The second option is to be cut apart limb by limb, and he will make sure he can never use those things again. The protagonist asks his master if there is another way to use that bracelet. She explains that the bracelet also has other effects, but with his current cultivation level, if he forces its use, he will be severely exhausted. Schwantian starts releasing more power, saying that there is no way to know the consequences if he does not try, not to mention that he does not want to be defeated by that kind of useless person. The protagonist advances, saying that the price for his weapons will have to be paid with his opponent's own life. However, the dragon says that those things will have no effect on him and receives the attacks. He starts duplicating, creating several other rings. The dragon keeps laughing, asking if the protagonist is doing some kind of magic trick for him because he does not know what use that has on his body. Schwantian asks if that is really true and asks what the dragon will do with 10 of those rings. The rings begin trapping the dragon, and Schwantian orders them to start closing in, crushing him. His master looks at the protagonist and thinks that he really is very smart because he had the idea of using his duplication power and, at the same time, provoked the king of the deep sea and distracted him so that he could trap him with a single move. Besides, she realizes that the protagonist has already completely exhausted his spiritual energy because his legs are starting to tremble, but even so, he refuses to give up. This makes her even more enchanted by that boy's strength. The dragon, still being crushed by the rings, shouts that he will manage to break free and eliminate the protagonist. Schwantian, trembling and almost out of energy, says that he would like to see who manages to kill the other first. But Sixizi asks him to wait a moment and explains that that beast from the bottom of the sea possesses abundant spiritual energy, and if he can sign a master-servant spiritual contract with him, it will be of great benefit to the protagonist's cultivation in the future. Schwantian tells the king of the deep sea that he has two options. He can become his spiritual pet and follow his orders, or he can choose to be crushed and turned into nothing but meat paste. But the dragon tells the protagonist to shut up, saying that he is worthy of being the king of the deep sea, so how could he become someone's pet? But Schwantian only starts squeezing harder, and the horned man realizes that he has no other way out. He will be crushed to death and shouts that he accepts and will sign the contract. He thinks that a wise man knows when to retreat, so he needs to pretend to obey and then find a chance to defeat that boy. The protagonist forces the contract and the dragon accepts, saying that everything is done. Dongxia breaks through the wall carrying Monet and says that apparently the protagonist does not need help. Schwantian is happy to see him. Dongxia explains that he left everyone else in a safe place and thanks the protagonist for his hard work. Now he will take those people there to headquarters because he assumes they may be able to obtain more information. Schwantian says that is great and thinks that this guy really is his idol. However, suddenly something passes by Dongxia extremely fast, ripping off one of his arms. A woman apologizes, saying that she did not mean to rip it off, but asks if this is what S-rank heroes are because they are very weak. Dongxia tries to heal himself to contain the wound, and the protagonist tries to go over to him to see if he's all right. But Dongxia asks him not to come any closer because that woman is very dangerous. He thinks that for her to have managed to appear silently behind him, her level must be far above that other woman dressed in black. Besides, Siren and Tick are injured. The longer they stand still, the worse it will get, so he must end that fight as quickly as possible. He tries to attack, but she manages to subdue him quickly. He is surprised, asking if that woman's power is magma. She laughs, saying that the first hero has already been collected. She places Monet on the ground and goes over to Tick, saying that now it is time to take the others. But the protagonist throws his ring at her and interrupts her. In a terrifying voice, he tells her not to dare because if she takes one more step, then she will die. The woman keeps mocking him and asks why there is an incompetent rat trapped in there. The protagonist starts moving, telling Xiaohai to protect the two of them, because he will try to save Dongxia. The dragon follows his master's orders, picks up the other two superheroes to protect them, and tries to attack that woman. But she counterattacks and emphasizes that Xiaohai is nothing but a useless pawn. The dragon shouts that he is being burned. Xuantian brings him back to save his dragon. The woman moves quickly toward the protagonist and asks what his name is. Xuantian is impressed by her speed. She starts smiling, saying that looking into the protagonist's eyes reminds her of a couple whose surname was Zhou, whom she killed 10 years ago. She emphasizes that the man looked a lot like the protagonist, and he did not want to hand over what she wanted, even when she was about to end his life. Because of that, she had to eliminate all of them, as if they were nothing but trash being thrown away. Hearing this, the protagonist is shocked, because 10 years ago means that his parents did not die because of a car accident, but because of the people from Cthulhu. He gets furious and says that she had better start talking, otherwise, but the woman moves quickly behind him and asks what will happen if she says nothing. She notices an attack coming toward her and manages to dodge, moving away from the protagonist. Dongxia managed to break through the magma cage. He asks Tick and Xuantian to run away with Siren and leave the rest to him. The protagonist refuses, but Tick ties him up and says that it is all right, asking his chief to be careful and return safely. The protagonist, still unable to accept that situation, orders him to untie him and asks if Tick has forgotten that they are from the same association. So how can they leave a member alone and run away from a fight? Tick, with tears in his eyes, shouts that he has not forgotten, but he also knows very well what a hero's responsibility should be. They are all running out of energy and staying there will only get in his way. They need to run, otherwise everyone will be killed because they are too weak at the moment. Xuantian still cannot accept all of this. The woman uses her magma ability, saying that no one will escape, but Dongxia steps forward and creates clones, telling all of them to leave immediately because a true hero will not be defeated by just that. He uses his ability to contain the advance of the magma and looks at the protagonist, telling him to tell his daughter to remember to eat on time and not get discouraged if she cannot use her abilities in the future because as long as she has a brave heart, she can still be a heroine. Xuantian, furious, shouts that he will definitely tell her all of that and take care of her. A short time later, Dongxia had been captured and the woman was lamenting, saying that she let a few rats escape and that the boss would bother her again. Sometime later, inside his apartment on television, the news was reporting follow-up coverage on the hero kidnapping incident, which had lasted many days. The Hero Association dispatched a large number of heroes and destroyed the base in the deep sea. Except for Dongxia, all the others were successfully rescued. Yunshu was on the bed with her brother, peeling an apple. She places it beside him, telling him to remember to eat it later. She leaves the room a little upset because her brother has not said anything since he came back and continues in that state, but she has no idea what he is thinking. Xuantian was blaming himself for everything that happened because he is too weak, and if he had been even a little stronger, he could have prevented all of that from happening. His master appears, asking if he is going to stay discouraged like that forever. The protagonist hits the bed angrily, saying that ever since he began learning to become an immortal, he discovered that it was something more powerful than having superpowers. So he thought there was nothing in the world he could not achieve and never thought about his own limitations. If he keeps being reckless like before, he will not be able to protect anyone, just like what happened now. In a confident tone, he begs his master to teach him how to become even stronger as quickly as possible. He goes to Xingxuan's room and tells her everything her father had said. She asks if her father really told him to say all those words because he really is an adorable idiot. The protagonist asks her not to worry because there are many great heroes in the association, and they will definitely find a way to rescue her father. With a smile on her face, Xingxuan says that it is all right, that the protagonist does not need to stay there to comfort her, and asks him to leave because she is going to rest. But as soon as he leaves, the smile on her face falls into complete despair. She remembers when she was just a small child and her father would come through the door apologizing because he had come back late again. A dozen children had been trapped in a fire, and his duty was to save them. However, he promised that the following year he would definitely be there blowing out the candles with her. However, with tears in her eyes, she slapped her father's hand, saying that he kept saying the same thing every year. She begins questioning what it means to be an S-rank hero and what that duty he always talks about is, because he is only hurting himself every day. Dongxia always kept a smile on his face, as if he were proud of everything he did. He explains to his daughter that his duty is to protect everyone. Only when they face danger head-on does he feel how precious life is. Because of that, he believes that one day she will be able to understand what he is saying, because taking on such a duty is the glory of a true hero. Tears begin to fall and she shouts, saying that her father is a true idiot for putting himself in danger to save others. Outside, Xuantian heard all her despair and felt the weight of being weak fall onto his shoulders. He calls his master, saying that it is time to become stronger. Sixiji says that from that point on, she will be stricter with the protagonist, and he does not even need to try saying that he is too tired or that he cannot take it. However, he answers without hesitation that there is no problem, because there is only one thing going through his head. He promises himself, his parents, and everyone who suffered that he will crush every member, every base, and every last trace of Cthulhu's existence. Inside his house, his master was asking why the protagonist was slowing down and tells him not to stop. Xuantian, with his arms trembling, tells his master that she is very heavy. Sixizi says that this is complete nonsense, because she is not that heavy. Besides, she's only in a spiritual state and has not added any pressure. She remembers all of the protagonist's training and thinks that in these past few days, that boy started training under extremely high pressure. He truly has perseverance, something many people cannot maintain. She snaps her fingers, asking him to stand up, because she will teach him something new. She emphasizes that she is a teacher, so she will teach a unique secret method called the Cultivate Immortality technique. He asks what kind of technique that is. His master begins explaining that this is a technique far beyond his current domain. However, since he absorbed the Forest King's power, he is ready to extract and refine the spiritual energy around him. And this is the best moment for him to practice this new method. There are two uses for that method. One of them is relying on the master-servant spiritual contract. The power of the contracted beast will be transformed into spiritual energy and transferred into the master's body so he can use it. However, there is a limit to making master-servant contracts. Based on his current cultivation, his limit is only one, and if he signs another contract, he may explode and end up dying. The protagonist is impressed to discover that such side effects exist. His master continues explaining that the other way is direct absorption. The stronger the target whose power he absorbs, the more spiritual energy he gains, which means he faces a greater risk. In the worst-case scenario, he will be devoured by the spiritual energy and lose consciousness. To solve this problem, they need to practice. She plays several psychic balls in that space, and he only needs to stand still and try to use his inner spiritual energy to attract them as if he were a magnet. If he manages to absorb the 100 spiritual energy balls, he will obtain the essence of the Cultivate Immortality technique. Excited by the situation, he shouts that there is no problem and begins absorbing them. A few days later, on the school battlefield, Zirui was still acting arrogant, calling the protagonist a bastard and saying that he had not seen him for days, so he thought he was too scared and had run away. Xuantian apologizes, however. He explains that it is very easy to forget to take out the trash. However, he does not have time to waste on nonsense and asks to start already. Zirui says that it is fine and asks the protagonist not to cry afterward. He thinks that to defeat him, he spent days dedicating himself and researching, making the most of his power. His superpower is to use money as the price to equally summon a powerful ghost giant. He managed to summon that monster using 100 million, and that is more than enough to defeat that piece of trash. His subordinates are impressed, saying that this is the first time they have seen the boss summon that thing, and they wonder how much it cost. The other one says that beast is immune to physical attacks and should have the strength of an A-rank monster. The monster tries to attack the protagonist, but he dodges and blocks the other attack. Zirui keeps provoking him, telling the protagonist not to just keep dodging, and asks where all that arrogance from before went. The protagonist keeps dodging and thinks that the monster is too large, so he cannot absorb it directly with the immortal method. In that case, he needs to counterattack first. The protagonist easily manages to cut that monster into pieces, leaving Zirui shocked by what he is seeing. His master is happy because her disciple quickly managed to discover the enemy's weakness, seeing that it is in the joints. That is not bad at all. After finishing chopping up his dinner, he devours everything, and Zirui cannot understand what is happening. The protagonist smiles and thanks him for the hospitality. The other students start saying that the protagonist is the transfer student who got an S-rank score on the freshman test, and that was impressive, because he won easily, which shows that his superpower is very strong. A short time earlier, while he was practicing, Xuantian refused to give up no matter what, saying that no matter the cost, he would manage to absorb all those balls. As soon as he pulled in the last one, He shouted to his master, saying that he had finally done it. She says that he did a good job and that now he can rest. But Xuantian refuses and asks her to add another 100 psychic balls because he will double his training. This leaves her surprised. Back in the present, she thinks that he not only learned the Taodi immortal technique in a short time, but also precisely strengthened the power flowing from his danti into his limbs. Its effects are also much more stable than when he cultivated for the first time. This means that the boy's growth is visible even to the naked eye. Xuantian goes over to Zerui and says that apparently he has been defeated. The winner has already been decided. His opponent can forget their previous promise because he does not want such an incompetent son. The previous bet was that if the protagonist lost, he would have to leave that school immediately. On the other hand, if he won, Zerui would have to kneel before everyone and call the protagonist father. Zerui was extremely irritated by that, but he notices that some people behind him were saying that apparently he is screwed, and now he will no longer have the courage to show off at school again, because the son of the richest man has now become poor, and not even his father will acknowledge such shame. Zerui is completely humiliated on the ground. Meanwhile, at Cthulhu's space base in the North Sea, a monster arrives and goes to meet Cthulhu's main boss named Isogda. He tells his subordinate that he is 2 minutes late. That is the Gravity King, an S-rank monster. The Gravity King emphasizes that he is very busy and that if it were not for Miss Monet, he would not even have gone there. Isogda tells the Gravity King that he should know that he never waits for anyone, but the Gravity King simply ignores all of that. Monet goes over to the Gravity King and asks him to look at the plan first because she is sure he will be interested. As soon as he starts looking at the plan, he realizes that he needs to create chaos and make Summer Island disappear. And that is very interesting. That mission is dangerous, so the price will be 3 times the current payment. He thinks that if such a thing happens, it will be a great event that shakes the world, so the eyes of the whole world will be on him. That way, he will earn the title of the most evil villain in history, the Gravity King. He emphasizes that if the plan goes well, he hopes Miss Monet can have a drink with him later. She says that if everything goes well, she can consider doing that. He gets excited, saying that he will prepare, and they only need to wait for the good news. Monet asks her boss if, after they finish that mission, she can gouge out that guy's eyes. Isogda says she can feel free to do whatever she wants. Meanwhile, inside the laboratory, Dongxia was being used as a lab rat. A chief goes over there and asks how the experiment is going. The woman from before explains that they are trying to extract his superpowers, but he keeps resisting with psychic power. At the current speed, it will take more than a month to do it. Isogda asks her to remember that no mistakes will be allowed in the wall program. She tells the boss that she met a teenager who looked a lot like Dr. Zhou while she was capturing Dongxia, so she suspects that there may be some kind of connection between them. Isogda grabs her by the neck and she gets excited, saying that this feeling is very good. He asks if she is saying there was a leak in the operation. He shouts at her, saying that he can keep her head where it is now, but she needs to go find out exactly what happened and clean everything up. Otherwise, he will rip off what she calls a head. Meanwhile, on Summer Island, Jiki was sitting there looking at the protagonist and Xingxuan. She thinks that Xingxuan has changed a lot after recovering. She became more stable and focused, and completed the D-rank monster cleanup mission in only 2 days. Xingxuan gets up and tells Xuantian that she is going to surf for a bit. Jiki thinks that, on the other hand, the protagonist completed that same mission in only 1 day, and something must be going on between the two of them. His master appears, saying that the top of that mountain is full of spiritual energy so they can train there. Cynthia asks if her sister saw that Summer Island actually has a Chinese-style pavilion right there. Sinmia asks if that is serious. She is the younger twin sister and the daughter of the world prime minister. Cynthia says that her clairvoyant eyes can see through thousands of kilometers, so they need to go. She is the older twin sister and the daughter of the world prime minister. Meanwhile, the protagonist was cultivating at the top of that mountain. He thinks that the heat dissipation effect of that robe is very bad and that it is very difficult to stay focused with so much heat, because he really wishes he had some ice cubes at that moment. Suddenly, he notices that some snowflakes have started falling. He is surprised to see that the staircase was covered in ice and that the two of them were approaching. Cynthia continues excitedly telling her sister to hurry up, because she said there is a pavilion right there. Suddenly, the ocean and the sky begin behaving strangely, and Cynthia ends up tripping and falling on top of the protagonist. He grabs a place he should not have and tries to explain himself, saying that he is very sorry because he did not do it on purpose. He asks if she is all right and why the ground is shaking, because something must be wrong. Suddenly, the entire island begins to float, and people scream that they do not know what is happening because the island seems to be flying. The Gravity King approaches, saying that the time for fun has arrived. Fiberclad appears with a small army of monsters, saying that the storms have surrounded that place and that they need to go to the different parts of the island and eliminate all unstable elements. She is the second commander of the Gravity King. Meanwhile, the protagonist was still confused, questioning why the island was floating. Suddenly, an illusion of the Gravity King appears, greeting everyone and saying that the stage is set and that they are going to have a crazy elimination banquet. The protagonist questions why the S-rank fugitive monster, the Gravity King, is there. He rushes off quickly, saying that there are many citizens on that island and that he needs to save them all. Cynthia tells her sister that they also need to help. She thinks that normally their father would not let them face such danger, but now they finally have the opportunity to fight. Meanwhile, at Hero headquarters, Tina tells the president that the Gravity King appeared in 13 places simultaneously around the world. Most of his clones selected crowded places to cause destruction, resulting in many casualties. Currently, they cannot determine which one is his true original body. Summer Island is in a complicated situation. It is located in the sea east of the city. The Gravity King made the island float into the sky and become trapped in controlled clouds. A large number of tourists were trapped on the island, as well as the other students from the Hero School. Initially, it is estimated that the number of people involved reaches tens of thousands. The president asked them to send all S-rank heroes, because the safety of the citizens is the priority. Besides, those clones are quite powerful, so they need to be careful. And the mission to save the island is entrusted to Shining because she needs to leave now. Shining is informed that he has just received the coordinates of Summer Island because it is being hijacked by the Gravity King and is currently floating in the sky. Because of that, he is being assigned to handle it due to his ability to fly. And if he happens to find the real Gravity King, he needs to report it immediately. Meanwhile, in the middle of the island, the other monsters were causing true chaos, making the humans beg not to be eliminated. One of the monsters holds a human, saying that the only thing he wants is to eliminate everyone. But suddenly, he is attacked by the protagonist, who goes over to the humans and asks if they're all right. He defeats all the monsters in front of him, saying that people with superpowers need to gather and help ordinary people first. Men need to protect women and children at all costs. They can leave through the right side and try not to be alone. He thinks that the teachers and students from the Hero School are there, so he believes they should be able to protect those who are temporarily helpless. The people with superpowers try to control the crowd, asking them not to panic and to stay calm. The twins also approach, defeating one of the monsters, asking them to stop bullying the weak. They continue attacking, causing a huge mess among some monsters, but they end up getting distracted and are caught off guard by another monster who knocks them to the ground. The monster starts laughing, saying that he found a pair of beautiful sisters and that tonight will be like paradise. But the protagonist appears behind him, asking what paradise he is talking about, because the only place he is going is straight to hell. He uses the immortal technique to absorb that demon immediately. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.